Good evening and welcome to the City of San Juan Bautista's regular Planning Commission meeting. Tonight is April 1st, 2014. And if you will stand with me and we'll pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Staff, will you call the roll, please?
Ernest Franco.
Here.
David Medeiros.
Here.
Amanda Guibert.
Here.
Georgiana Galarte.
Here.
Pat Garrett.
Here. We have a quorum. Okay. The agenda. Commissioners, do you have any comments, additions, subtractions, deletions, whatever? I'll call for motion to continue with the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Okay. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous for approval. Next is public comment. This is a part of the meeting which anyone who would like to address the Commission on an item that is not already on the agenda, now would be the time. Such as, if you want to tell us how good a job we're doing, now would be the time because that's not on the agenda yet. But anything you'd like to say that's not necessarily going to be, won't be a dialogue, but it is time for the Commission to listen to what the citizens have to say. If there's action needed, we would put it on the agenda, or we would refer it to staff as appropriate. If anybody signed in?
No, I have no speaker card.
We have no speaker cards submitted, so we'll go to the next item, there being no public comments. Informal project review. Any potential or future project applicant may present his or her project to the Commission during this time. The whole purpose here is for getting information to the proponent, preliminary feedback. If it looks pretty bad and we say it's pretty bad, that gives you an indicator of what's going to happen later. So at this part, we do not require a formal application. Just to let us know who you are, you come up with your project and you get some interesting feedback, directions, stuff you can tell your architects, your engineers, and come back with a project that would probably have fare well with the city and the Commission. We have any informal project reviews? We do. The Christopher Ranch Estates, staff, can you help us on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, as you recall, the applicant submitted a minor subdivision to split off that portion of the Christopher Ranch that's within the city of San Juan Bautista. And now that the map has been recorded, approved and recorded by the City Council, it is officially into the city. The applicant now is requesting an informal application for a opportunity to come in front of the Planning Commission and show their intended use and how they'd like to develop the property.
Okay.
Let me open up a couple items. Good evening. My name is Bob Fulton, and Chairman Franco, Planning Commissioners, staff, attendees, I appreciate your time and effort. I do want to say one thing. You've seen my face, I usually cover the head with a hat, but you've seen my face here for about a year now, watching what's going on in San Juan Bautista and trying to listen to, as much as I could, in a way, a dialogue and desires and needs of City Council, Planning Commission, staff, and residents of the town. I've been at all the general plan update meetings and spent the time here that I could. And the purpose of it was to be able to get in front of you tonight and in the future with a proposal that we think accomplishes a lot of things for the city. And it accomplishes things that will help the city grow, contributes quite a bit. And as you've seen me before when we came in with the parcel map to split off the city portion of the Christopher Ranch. And that is about 28 acres. I have a map up here that kind of gives you an idea of what our proposal is, but it's come out from a few things. The first thing was listening to what people wanted in a lot of these meetings. And in the general plan update, a lot of people expressed to me that what they wanted, or what I heard, and part of it's because it's what I asked for, is where does residential housing belong within the city in your general plan update? One of the loudest things I heard was that it belongs away from Highway 156. Keep it away from the traffic, keep it away from the noise. The second one was, with some of the proposals that were out there, there was housing proposed in the floodplains, and nobody thought that made a lot of sense, which I understood. And so in listening to those, it just confirmed to me that we might be on the right path on what we think should happen with that 28 acres on the Christopher Ranch. Most of the people that I've talked to have said a great example of a project that went through the process, got a lot of great feedback from everybody, was the Creek Bridge subdivision. And we agreed with that. We think it's done very well. It represents the town well. And it really seems to have a lot of the characteristics of what I see in San Juan Bautista. Some of the needs that I've heard are that you have some infrastructure problems that really need money to correct them. And you have a business downtown that really needs money to keep it going forward. It needs support. One of the things that supports local businesses the best is local residents. One of the things that supports the city very well is a project like this that brings in, our project as proposed would bring in well over $3 million in building and impact fees, and those are one-time fees that come into the city. On top of that, as any other housing development does, it brings in ongoing revenue from property tax, and it brings in a lot of revenue from the residents of the project. When you bring in new families, in the first 24 months, especially on a brand new home, when people own a home, they will spend more than they will. In the first 24 months, they'll spend as much as they do in the next 15 years on that house. So there's a lot of revenue to come in. There's a lot of ways to support the city, and a lot of things we like about the development that we're going to propose to you guys. We think it will be a wonderful neighborhood. City staff has worked with us very well. They've given us a lot of input as we've gone through numerous layouts on this project. Our engineer, San Benito Engineering, Ann Hall, is here tonight. If there's any quick questions you have of Ann, she's put a lot of time and effort into this, and I really think she's created a plan that has a lot of merits that we're hoping you like. My goal was to bring something to you, spend a long time listening, bring something to you that helps accomplish a lot of the things that I hear everybody wants. We could have brought in a cookie cutter layout and gone back and forth and been beat up for a long period of time. But that's not our goal. It's not the way we work. It's not what we would like to do. So with that, I've got a couple of maps up here. Hopefully this one's visible enough for people to see. And I don't know if you can read the one in front of you. It's pretty small, and I will apologize, as I said, for the calligraphy, because that's mine. It's not Ann's. I'm not going to blame that on her. But the map that you have in front of you provides a number of things that the city had asked for, and some things that they just spoke about and we've never discussed. The first one is, when you come into San Juan Bautista on 1st Street, you don't know you're here until you're in town. And we think that San Juan Bautista should have some sort of a welcoming entry sign, something that greets people coming into the town. As you come into the town on the right-hand side, once you hit the city limits, there's room for that. There are places that it could be put, and we would propose that that's something we would contribute to. And with city staff and commission's guidelines, find a way to greet people as they're coming into the town. The other thing that came up through general plan update meetings, discussions, and discussions with staff is that traffic calming measures towards San Juan Bautista would be very beneficial. And we're proposing a roundabout, which we've discussed with staff, and it was their suggestion first, is that maybe we could do a roundabout, one of those things, and we think that's a great idea on the way into town. I initially thought we should put a great monument inside the roundabout as people come into town to welcome them in there. But the traffic companies that we work with have said, you don't do that because somebody's going to blow through that roundabout at some point, run straight into whatever monument you've got there, and someone's going to get hurt. I understand that. I get that. And that's where we came about with the concept of let's move it back, put it on the city limit line as you're coming into town. Other things that the staff has suggested is let's keep as much visible open space and let's make it a nice greeting as you come into town. When I walk you through our layout, I think you'll agree we've accomplished that pretty well. We've also talked, and I can't help you on this project with the Alameda intersection, but I can help you with connectivity from 1st Street over to 3rd Street. That was not our first choice. And the reason it wasn't our first choice, as many of you will understand, is it gets us involved with the Department of Fish and Game, the Regional Water Quality Board, and Army Corps of Engineers, which are extreme challenges for us going forward. But Roger and Matt have said, hey, we really think this would be important, so that's a battle we're going to take on. We're going to go forward in trying to incorporate a bridge from our neighborhood over to 3rd Street, where it will connect. The bridge not only will be for autos, but what we've taken is a street that's going to be wide enough that you'll have a 10-foot wide walkway, a path that will go from 1st Street up through our entrance and over across to 3rd Street and across the bridge. The walkway will be about 10 feet wide, and then we've also incorporated in there that it will have bicycle lanes, 5-foot wide bicycle lanes with 3-foot wide buffers. So you really have a very accessible area for white people to bike, jog, walk, come from that end of the town, across the bridge, and into the town. So we incorporated a number of things that were requested of us, or I shouldn't say requested, but suggested of us. And we've come up with the plan that's in front of you right now. When you look at it, you'll see that when you get to the roundabout where our entrance is, it's going to be a pretty wide open space that's leading straight up to where the Christopher Ranch House is now. We also know that in looking at the way Creek Bridge was laid out, we rearranged quite a few things so that we'll be able to have front yards that face up to almost every street. You're not going to drive through and see a lot of backyard fences. We've eliminated as much as we can to make it an inviting neighborhood that resembles what you already have. The other thing that happens when you do a development like this is nowadays we have an opportunity to incorporate water conserving landscape, more energy efficient housing, and a number of things that I've heard a lot of interest expressed in at all of the meetings. Boy, I have a pretty self-explanatory plan in front of you. I'd love to answer any questions that you might have, and if they get it all difficult, I'm going to defer them over to Ann, but I can tell you what our thoughts and intent are. And I'm also going to take a moment to tell you that in the year that I've watched this, and I've expressed this to a number of you individually, I think, I'm very impressed with the Planning Commission here and the City Council here within this town. You people listen, you pay attention, you all have your hearts in it, and everything is very, very, well, I would say heartfelt. I watched the ARCO project go through the process, and all of the city officials should stand up and be proud of the way that went through and it was handled. That's my belief. It was good. You did a very good job. So it's been interesting to watch, and I think you're doing a wonderful job for the city. So thank you, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners.
I have a couple questions. This is a flood zone right here, this whole piece of property. I've seen the water going down the creek run over the road 2.5 feet all the way down.
I believe that.
Plus, you also have a problem here. The water level right there is 3.5 feet down.
It's a little deeper than that because we have done that test.
Yeah, but
it's
around that
shallow.
valley, it's pretty shallow.
It is shallow.
Yeah.
You are correct. Yeah.
So I don't see, you don't have a map here where the creek's going to come out from the above your property from the other end over there.
On the backside.
But that's my concern about this whole project is that it is a floodplain.
Well, technically, it's not a floodplain, but you're correct in that water shows up. I mean, it does. If you look at, and you may want to add to this also, but if you look at what we've laid out here, the street runs along the creek side. And everything that would be on the residential side of that street will probably be a little higher in elevation. When you look at the detention area that is down along our entry and the creek that's over there, that will handle more than the runoff from this property, also additionally to what's out there.
But it's not going to handle the water that comes out of Nyland Dam when we get a lot of rain.
That is a challenge.
Because all the water comes through that area right there.
And we have been discussing that a bit with city staff and know that that is something that probably needs addressing.
And then this whole project going to be on a pumping station for the sewer system?
I believe that it will be at this time, yeah. There is a pumping station next door, yes. Yeah, but no, you're very correct, and that is why you see that open space there. We know there's got to be more water there than is needed a lot now and then.
Because I know if you go and you're going to have to enlarge the creek going down along the highway probably.
Well, we
Because
can't
that creek,
enlarge the creek.
just with a little rain we get now, it overflows. Sometimes you can't even drive to that.
Yeah, I believe that,
And generally, the Fish and Game kind of refrains from widening the stream, and generally the attack is to go adjacent to the bank and then build up a bank so that the floodwaters stay within that channel, and then it has a berm on the side to keep it contained.
On both sides or not?
Yes.
Because you don't want to flood in the Nyland property. When that creek comes up, it floods on in the Nylands too on the left side.
Yeah.
So you got a major problem with water.
well, and you are correct. That is, the drainage studies
Right.
are underway and they have been going on. And it is something we know we have to help address.
Yeah.
There is a problem there, and we're not trying to pass it on to somebody else to
Right.
do something. We're here to help correct what's wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Is your detention open space, does it butt up against the one in Creek Bridge?
No, there's a creek in
In
between.
between, okay.
But yes, boy, to be that
It's that
1,
big
2,
corner.
3, 4, fifth
Yeah.
lot in would be their detention basin.
And you would have something comparable, larger.
It would be larger, and it would be meant to complement and help anything that's going on in that area.
Well, I have to say, it's a big project. I wasn't anticipating 97 houses. Creek Bridge is only 35,
29.
I think, 29.
29, I think. Our density is, we're actually larger lots than Creek Ridge. It's 3.5, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark per acre. They're all over 7,000 square feet. Some of them are pretty large. They're up to, I think there's a couple that are 13, 14, 15,000 square feet in that area. What I heard from people is they want to move to San Juan Bautista to get the single-family house on a good-sized lot in an area they're happy and comfortable and want to live in. We're not proposing any small lot type neighborhoods here.
Where would your park be? Would you have a park?
Well, other than the grassy detention, which is going to be most of the year open, and we're talking about what would be incorporated within it. At this time, we don't, and if you go over to 3rd Street, where you enter the project, before you cross the bridge, we're proposing giving that to the city as part of what will be the future park when the treatment plant is relocated. So the green that you see in there, along the 10-foot walkway and bike path, will be city property.
Okay. Roger, I'm looking at this area here? What is that?
These would be 3 lots that back up to Creek Bridge off of 3rd
That are
Street.
part of this project?
Yeah, right.
Okay. And where is that trailer that must be here? Is that going to stay, that trailer home, or?
That would be on this lot here, and that will be removed.
Okay.
The existing small
The rental that's there?
The rental. It's a what? Oh, I see.
So my question is, so is this going to be done in phases?
Yes. Yeah, 90, this would be way too many to do all at once, and
And when you say it's not going to be done, what's the duration period that the phases will go in?
that would strictly be supply and demand. If you have people that are begging to get it done, we're going to move as quickly as possible on it. It's absorption based upon demand.
What are you projecting?
My guess is that this would probably be a 3-year project.
Which area do you think you would develop first? Or do you have an idea yet?
We don't have an idea of that, but we know that we would have to develop the entrance first, obviously. And my gut feeling would be that you would see, and this is just a guess, obviously, but as you go up toward the Christopher Ranch, right in that area, is probably where you'd want to do the display homes. And that allows you also to complete the infrastructure that goes from 1st Street over to 3rd Street, and the things that would be important to have up front.
How does this fit into our housing element with the requirements that we're going to have? Will you be able to help us satisfy that?
Asking me or Roger?
Some in the inclusionary housing, very similar to what we did on the Creek Bridge, that some of these lots are very large, that you could have the secondary unit that would, meet a portion of the inclusionary housing. And then the rest would be in lieu fees, unless they wanted to construct a unit that would be selling for the affordable price range. We're still going through the formulas on that to determine how that's going to react.
Thank you.
When we lived in Sacramento in a newer development, all the corner properties were duplexes.
Duet type?
Yeah. Do you anticipate doing that?
I do. I think depending upon what we do on the inclusionary zoning, I can see 4 lots that would very easily work on a duet type residence.
And would those be
Yes.
inclusionary?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In conversations, and the question may have been a little more about how does it fit into the zoning within the housing element update. And in conversations with Professor Norso and a number of the students who are on what we all wish we had, they're on spring break for a while. But in conversations with them after the last meeting, they looked at some of the places they had designated residential and what we had heard, and we talked about this. I think when you see your next update come out, we will be favorably mentioned for low-density residential, as I mentioned, because technically we're not in the floodplain, although we have water issues to deal with. We are within the city limits, and we accomplish a lot of the things that will help go forward.
I got a question for Roger. Do we have enough capacity for 90 houses plus 40 we just approved, plus the water?
Right now, the plant capacity is running is certified for 224,000 gallons per day. We're operating right about 155 to 160. What we're finding is that the last 4 to 5 years, we've seen a reduction in effluent because people are using more efficient plumbing fixtures, and they're cutting down on their discharge. And the flows, we've tracked it for the last 4 years, and we used to run right about 190, and now it's right down to 160.
Now, what about the sewer capacity?
The sewer capacity is at 224, so you take and the average discharge per person per day is about 86 gallons is what we designed for, and so we take that and then we crank that into the formula to see what our residual capacity is. Based on what we've done in our preliminary analysis, this one, the D'Ambrosio and the Manning formula would be right at the sewer capacity of the plant. Anything beyond that we'd have to expand the sewer.
Because we also got that other project at the end of 3rd Street.
Yeah, that's the D'Ambrosio. Yeah.
But that's, they've changed it from 42 down to 27.
Well, we don't know yet.
27, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so that would be helpful.
So, and we're cognizant that we're monitoring all the time to see how we're there, and then we've also looked at the ability for the plant expansion.
One of the things this project does do in the way of fees is it brings in over $700,000 toward the water impact fees, and well over $500,000 on the sewer impact, just the one-time fees.
It costs a couple million just to fix the plant.
Yeah. We would have the design review after, the way we did
As a main
project.
application, yeah.
Yeah.
We would.
Yeah, the sequence would be is the applicant would then submit a formal application for a tentative map approval, and then it would go through those steps, environmental initial study and all the reviews and all the assessment. They have already commenced a lot on their geological and seismic and traffic analysis to see what the anticipated impacts are, and then that would be reflected in an environmental document. And then once that goes through the various hearings, then you come up with the conditions of approval, the mitigation, the monitoring reports, and very similar to a standard subdivision. And then the conditions, like Bob has said, he wanted to phase it. They'll come up with a phasing plan of how they're going to mitigate that, and then you make that as a condition and how it's going to be built out.
And that report will also adjust the flooding problem there and all that stuff?
Yeah, right. Yeah. All of those, every one of the mitigation measures that we've talked about, identified, and some of them we haven't even thought about, will be addressed and mitigated. Yeah.
And open for public review here.
And open for public review, yeah.
Absolutely.
When we were going through the Creek Bridge subdivision, one of the really appealing to me, but it didn't turn out to happen, was the widths of the streets. The Creek Bridge people made a terrific presentation for a more cottage-like community with a narrower than the streets that Creek Bridge ended up with. I would be interested as we go along to hear from Creek Bridge people. Do they like those really wide streets, which to me make me think people rush through them, use it as a pass-through in order to get to San Juan? And the more community-friendly, narrower streets seemed like a good idea to me, but it was rejected by that. Actually, the city council got in on it. So I don't know where that's all going to stand, but I would like a community feeling within the subdivision, which I think is lacking in Creek Bridge because of the width of their streets.
Yeah. And what I know Matt and I have talked about it extensively is that we want to encourage bicycle pathways in the street right away, and they have to be marked. And by the time you get 2 traffic lanes of 12 and 12,
I see.
and then the bike lanes, and then curbside parking, it lends itself to what Creek Bridge currently has. It could be developed. If you go to a narrow one, then you're going to have to give up one or the other, you know.
I see.
On-site curbside parking or bike lanes, you know. So it's,
Do you have any preliminary...
it's really the direction of what the community wants to go, if we want to make it pedestrian, bicycle friendly or automobile friendly.
Do you have any preliminary returns on your seismic studies? I mean, how close are you to the faults that we have?
We're very close to the fault. We will have to do trenching on the
Northeast.
northeast corner
Geological.
of the property. So that will happen and occur, and we may lose a couple of those lots in that area until it's exactly located. We won't do that for a little while down the road. The cost of it is pretty astronomical. But we know it could come up, it would happen, we can address it. That will not be a big challenge.
Okay.
But we know it's there. The road shows us it's out there.
It just came up because we just had an 8.2 earthquake down in Chile, and we're all aware of it.
Yeah, well, in Southern California.
That's on too, yeah.
Yes,
It's coming.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions?
Why are you calling it 3rd Street in that portion of the project?
I'm only saying that because it connects over to 3rd Street. We're not calling it, that's not a specific name for it. Did we?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ann. It is, obviously it's changeable, but that is the connection through there. So we're open to suggestion.
Well, it just seems that 3rd Street is more of a commercial. I know there's residential on 3rd Street, what have you, it's a combination of. But it's probably our main street, you know.
And I get that.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
It's not that I don't want it, it's just that it's interesting. It's still 3rd Street.
Well, especially since we...
I don't think of it as residential.
Yeah, and we will come to most likely a stop sign. I know that Ann has been talking with the engineer on the adjacent project, so it'll be very easy to change a name there.
As far as the Creek Bridge project, the year or two before they built it, it was flooded.
Yeah.
And a couple of bulldozers and earth movers they put in there brought it up. I don't know how much footage they put in there.
About 4.5 feet up.
Yeah, and there's not a problem now.
Except for growing trees.
Except,
Or gardens.
yeah.
We've
But
spoken with the builders of Creek Bridge, which is thrust forward quite a bit about this, and they're very supportive, but they didn't want to go through the whole process of getting it approved on this, because we did talk to them about potentially building it. We think they did a great job, and they are a group that we've worked with and done some things in the past. So.
A couple of comments. Dave's comment about the name of the street. I'm very happy to see that on this map today it says San Juan Highway, which is the real name. It's not Old San Juan. Oh, the people who live out there are very concerned that it would always remain San Juan Highway.
No, thank you.
Remember Althea brings that up at Historical Society meetings. And then about the roundabout, as I recall, back to Creek Bridge days, there was a beautiful walnut tree that was going to be the center of a roundabout right at their entrance.
Oh, really?
But the walnut tree didn't make it. So that was why Creek Bridge doesn't have a more
roundabout.
friendly entrance. Why the walnut tree did not make it is a mystery.
One thing too is this roundabout. It's going to accommodate truck traffic.
We're open to however the city would like to design it, and we've seen a number of different layouts for roundabouts. So I think we can accomplish whatever you want right in that area.
Would we keep that stop sign that's at Awani?
Probably we could eliminate that. You know, the roundabout is functions as a traffic speed reducer, where they go down, and then so it functions in a number of ways. We also can function it to where it can handle trucks. We don't want to encourage 18-wheelers because we have problems with them coming in, and anything in the city of San Juan Bautista is restricted to 3 tons. You know, so at that there is we will probably have that designed to where if an 18-wheeler comes in, he's going to have a hard time navigating around it, just to discourage him.
Yeah. What about emergency equipment if they get pretty big sometimes? Is that going to be a problem in the future? I mean, we have that many homes in there.
It shouldn't, you know, and properly designed, you know. I was talking with Ann, and I was showing her some designs that I downloaded from Prescott, where they're right on state highways, and a number of trucks come through there, you know. They don't encourage it, but and then they very slowly maneuver around them, you know. It's a traffic calming device. What it is.
Okay.
Because this project, the other project, it'll dump about 270 cars a day on our road. If everybody has 2 cars.
Well, there've been traffic monitors out there, right?
Yes.
Those posts have been out, yeah.
They're constructing the traffic survey now.
Yeah, we should have that report back within the week here.
Well, I would just like to commend you for the efforts that you've invested in this, coming to meetings and listening, being here while the general plan is being updated, and working with Roger and Matt.
Now, thanks. My goal is to bring you guys something that really you're excited about taking forward through the city. And I think it's a wonderful place to do it. I think we can solve a lot of the housing needs. We can help with a lot of the revenue needs. And we can bring something in that you guys would be proud of to have your name on. And we're looking for your feedback on how to do that. I think we've thought through an awful lot of stuff prior to today. We've spent a little extra time trying to hear you and see what we can do. So thank you very much.
That puts you in a position of being in partnership with the city.
Absolutely.
And so glad to have you with us. I like the proposal. And, we can work out any details that have to come up, but glad to have you with us.
Well, thank you.
Would you like to speak?
I just wanted to comment on Georgiana's question regarding the width of the streets. And so width of the streets, we kept them at 40-foot curb to curb. And the trade-off is on what I would consider the main drive-through, coming from 3rd Street out to the roundabout, is shown as no on-street parking, but you have the wide bike lane with the buffer. So that's intended to be, and then you have the wide sidewalk next to it for jogging or walking. So that's intended to be more of a community pathway through there without the street parking for those that would be traveling through and make it comfortable for the bikes. Within the neighborhoods, it allows street parking, but doesn't have a specific bike lane. So the road didn't get wider to accommodate all 3, but it changes depending on whether or not you've got driveways entering the road or whether it's part of your thoroughfare. So just to clarify that. And then briefly, I know Bob mentioned it, but we have been talking to the Ambrosia engineer and making sure our entrances coordinate together too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've always said that the city is not in the business of building subdivisions or houses, and that makes it a partnership with the folks who do. And all we do is set the rules, what we want the city to look like, and they make it happen. Look forward to working with you.
All right. Well, thank you.
I have a public comment.
Oh, public comment? Sir.
Richard Conte.
Hi, Richard Ponce, 93 4th Street. I am excited about this project. I think there's going to be a lot more coming. San Juan has recently got a lot of attention. By the way, you guys are doing a good job. City Council is doing a good job. City staff is doing an excellent job addressing these new projects. What I'd like to see, I heard it mentioned that something like a monument in the roundabout, that it is not going to be able to work too well at that project. I would love to see something at our gateway to our city, something on McCallum, something on the other end, some kind of a monument. Maybe this project would be willing to help us with that. I think they would really be welcome if they were able to do something like that for us. So I encourage them and you guys to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no further comments? Staff, we have no other comments? Okay. So much with the direction. Let's go to the next item on the agenda. Okay, consent items. Approve the affidavit of posting and approve the minutes for February 4th. And I have some comments of my own. Okay, I'll lead off since I got. On page 2 of the minutes, a motion was made by Chairman Franco. Chairman doesn't make motions; he calls for motions. So, anybody want to take credit for making the motion?
Well, I can't because I seconded it. It can't be you because you weren't here yet, right?
Right.
Hey.
So I think it was Pat.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Okay, so Commissioner Garrett. Okay. On the next page 3, the San Juan, the third line, we don't have an EIR on this one. We have a mitigated negative declaration. And then on line 1, 2, 3, 4, on line 5, reminded council that Leal does not have,
Right.
the word have, a project or application.
Yep.
Can we use his name, Frank Leal? So
You'd
that
like?
we don't get him mixed up with Matt Leal.
Oh, we
who's
use it
not
up.
related?
We use it up above on the
Not
on line
related?
3.
Okay, good. I see.
Okay, on page 4, this is minor. It's plan lines, second line of plan lines. It should be rights of way and hyphenated. Rights dash of way. Okay. I'm good. Any other comments on that?
Back to page 3, in the middle of the second paragraph, the last word, is that going to be consistencies?
It's supposed to be pointed out some inconsistencies.
Inconsistencies, I thought.
Or you?
Right here in the middle,
Of the second paragraph.
Commissioner Guibert pointed out some inconsistencies between the resolution and the negative debt.
Okay. Let's go to the bottom 2. Also, under 1, 2, fourth line from the bottom, without the illustrations. Because it sounds like without illustrations, we meant they're required. But without the illustrations, that's what we're talking about. Okay. Any other comments?
On page 2,
Page 2.
like 2/3 of the way down, a motion was made by Commissioner Guibert, blah, 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 to rescind the conflicting parts with the recommended.
Yes.
With the recommended what?
Ordinance?
Okay.
Yeah, so to rescind the conflicting parts of the design guidelines with the recommended ordinance. Does that roughly sound good?
So we need all those words.
Yeah, I think if we added ordinance after recommended, how would that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Any other? I think this is important because if a challenge comes up, you want to make sure that the opposition sees it the same way we saw it. Okay. There are no other comments. Let's see what we've got. I'll call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda
Consent
for
agenda.
what was it, the 4th of February?
Right. Oh, both of them, the agenda and,
We approved both A and B.
Yeah,
Number 5.
yeah, the complete consent agenda.
I'll second it. At the same time. Well, you just said I'll second it.
Okay, Benda and David. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Next one, action items. We have a sign code continued public hearing. Now, we've been working on the sign code for a couple of years, and we're down to the nitty-gritties. The last refinements, refinements, the ordinance itself, and when you do an ordinance, it has an effect on other things, and it had effects on the design guidelines. So let's talk about the changes to the sign code first.
And I took George Thatcher's memo, and the ones in italics is the one that I've added as a result of George, and some of them were ours to clarify some of the issues. And on the first there, under 11.10.2, it says he wanted no persons shall place, erect, or install or maintain any signs in the city without first obtaining a sign permit pursuant to this chapter. He wants to make sure that that's in there. Your intent was good, but
Okay.
And And if you guys want to go through each one of them, and then he suggested to be specific on signs that shall be exempted. And he illustrated holiday decorations in the season, temporary directional signs during emergency tours, one bulletin board or special event signs not exceeding 20 square feet in an area not more than 10 feet in height at the site of a school, institution, or public property, provided the contents of the sign relates to an activity conducted at or sponsored by the school, institution, or public agency. Special street address numbers, informational signs on doors, public restrooms, not exceed 120 square inches, and any signs within the interior area of a business or establishment for purposes of directions, information, and emergency signs permitted by the building codes. You don't want to confuse to say if you have an exit sign or a directional sign to the bathroom, you're not controlling them.
Got to have a sign on those things.
Yeah.
And all under general regulations at the beginning of the ordinance is what he's suggesting.
That's pretty
We
standard
didn't want to
stuff.
be so negative. I'm wondering if that's in following with our intention was to
Yeah.
get this worded so that it did not antagonize people.
And it was more positive, and that was our whole approach.
Yeah,
yes.
so these things in the general regulations I'm questioning.
Well, these are all exempted.
I know, but we want to put them right there at the beginning of our whole document. Is that right?
Well, it's pretty positive.
Yeah.
Cities taking their hand off of restroom doors.
Okay.
If he recommends it, if the city attorney recommends it, I'm not going to argue with him, I don't think.
Well,
Key thing is he has to defend us if something goes bad.
I see.
So if I'm with you. At times I just soon not, but if he has to do the defending, then it should be in, as far as we can allow it to his line of music there.
And under Section E, he just wanted to make sure that all new and replaced signs, he says projecting signs in that one section, because that's the section it refers to.
So Trish will make all the changes, or do you want me to do that?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
going over this with Roger and wondering, for a first draft on the draft, maybe try to do it in the yellow or something so you know where the changes were made,
Okay.
so we don't lose it.
And if you want, then we could hold another sign committee to go over the final thing and get it ready for your first meeting in May, where then it would be ready as an ordinance with recommendations to the city council.
I don't know that we need another meeting.
Yeah,
Like I said,
yeah.
we've got the bulk of it. We're reviewing it right now.
Yeah, okay.
And all we're going to see is the fact that it's going to be put in.
Okay.
And that should cover us.
Because we're sending it on to city council for final.
Yeah.
I just want to make one point on the non-illuminated sign. It should be non-illuminated with a D at the end.
Where was that?
And it's on the last page of the attorney's
comments, yeah.
comments.
The attorney's pages are neither numbered nor line numbered, so
Yeah,
it's very
yeah.
difficult to know where to go.
Yeah, and I think George said that there was some in the definitions that weren't in there, and he
Yeah.
wanted special event signs, wall signs, and non-illuminated signs. Correct that, yeah.
Yeah. Area is a new definition. Signs. Yeah.
And then I think on the area, he pointed out, he says, well, you have to define what is an area. And I know in other sign ordinances I've come where people just put letters down, and then you have to calculate the letters, and that's the area of the sign.
Yeah.
It's not in a border. Most signs have it's on a border and everything, and then you can calculate it. But if they have individual letters, then you got to go and calculate those total square footage.
Square it off.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Signs on.
And the other, and just before we leave there, the other point that him and I talked about and you'll see it down there, where a corner lot, and a corner lot is where you give credit for the side yard and everything. But I don't want somebody to come in and says, well, there's a vacant lot and I'm on a corner lot and I can see it. So we rewrote that thing to where there would be no credit on a side of a building that potentially another building can be put in there. And so we wanted to be specific about that. You know.
Now, do we paint signs on buildings?
I wondered about that too.
Okay.
The San Juan Bakery had.
Would it fall down and crush somebody that you'd need an indemnity?
No.
I didn't think so.
Where is that one?
That's number 5 on page, second page. All signs permitted, all sign permits approved by the commission or other authority authorized by this chapter shall include a condition of approval for a sign approved by the city, shall include an executed agreement to defend, etc., etc. That's hold as harmless. All signs, and I'd hate to have, if a guy goes down to his insurance company and says, you know, I got to have insurance on this sign. Well, if the wall comes down, yeah. But that's on a different policy.
I wonder how many buildings do we have now that have signs on them? The Bluebird used to. I don't know if it still does.
May not be an issue. I just don't want it to be one.
The sign that was on the lamp, the
Right.
place that burned
Right.
down was not permitted. It never came before a review, so, but there they were.
Most of these identification agreements are hold harmless agreements that we make the developers and any applicants sign. Then if the projecting sign's over public right-of-way, then we ask that we be mentioned as an additional insurer on their policy just to safeguard it. So it's
comes
both
up-
ways. They have to acknowledge that they'll hold harmless the city and all of officers and employees, and then they will also have to protect us by saying is your insurance is going to cover it.
But see, it says all sign permits.
All sides.
I think if it comes with the commission, I would remove that condition.
We should say all projecting signs over right away?
Yeah, that would cover it. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I mean, if a sign is bolted to a wall, well, that projects out. Yeah, okay, I'll go for all projecting signs.
How about all signs projecting? Because we have a definition of a projecting sign, which, and anything that might hang out and not be particularly called a projecting sign.
So we're going to take out the word permit?
All signs projecting.
All signs projecting. no
We're looking
public-
for projecting signs to have.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but
So how would you want to word that?
Under 2, it mentions projecting. It goes 4, 5, and then indented there is 2. Naming the city as additional, for all signs projecting into a public right-of-way. And it said projecting
And portable
signs
signs as well.
But see, 5, section G, all
So,
signs.
so
permits.
make G consistent with 2A in terms of that saying they're all signs projecting into a public right-of-way.
Just like the one I got on Oxford Plaza,
Yeah.
we take out insurance for it, because if it falls down, we're liable for it. so.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's to make that one consistent.
So with all these changes then, it's going to go directly to city council?
It comes back to us.
Okay. At a public meeting?
Oh, it is coming
Yeah.
back
Well, it has to.
I thought
You
so.
got to see the product.
In May,
In
but not
May.
a special meeting.
No, I don't think.
Just
we'll
in
be-
May as a formal, where you review it and then you'll adopt it by resolution recommending it.
Okay, and then city council can look at it 2 weeks later.
Yes.
And we're depending on the public media to let the public know that we have made these changes according to the lawyer and that we'll be reviewing it again in May. Is that right?
Well, that'll be on, it's being taped right now. That'll be on CMAP.
Probably everything that we took out, you put back in. We were trying to simplify it.
Yeah, because
I
I've
think,
had so many comments to
at your-
simplify.
At your next meeting, maybe we could get into a dialogue of the strategy of how, once you forward it to city council and they adopt it, the strategy of getting the notices out to the business owners. I'm primarily concerned with the business owners downtown, and maybe we'll have to duplicate 50 copies of this thing and go hand deliver it to them and just says, I want you to be aware that these are the new regulations, you should read it, and because within the next 60 days after they make the first reading and the second reading, and then 30 days after it becomes law, that it's going to be enforced, and it'll really make Matt's and my job a little bit easier.
Right.
The
How
problem-
are they going to help you enforce these
Yes,
regulations?
exactly, yeah.
And let the property owner, because he is really the right responsible party.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the strategy that I was going to suggest that we do once you make that recommendation to the City Council.
We're going to adopt that as a policy,
Yeah.
saying here's what we want staff to do, or here's how it should be done.
And it feathers and promulgates everything that you guys have been talking about for the last 2 to 3 years. You want to be open, transparent, and business friendly.
Well, I don't know how much more friendly we can get, but let's work on it.
Well, we've given him 3 years of reprieve.
Yeah.
Trish, may I recommend that when you type this up or revise it, that you eliminate the highlighting that I had? And
Okay, that part was accepted in, is
yeah,
part of it
yeah,
now.
and get rid of the red and the line out.
Okay.
Thank you.
The bottom of that page, the second page there, section 1110.060, this is the attorneys. The last line, 1/4 square foot, and that should be 4 of each foot of width, not of each foot. In case when they're copying it over. Okay. Then on the next page again, under section A, it's rights of way. Yeah, I'm sorry we missed that, the election campaign signs. The poles on the people put signs on utility poles, and that's not just a aesthetic thing. That is a hazard to the guys that got to climb them, because you get some of these poles in critical areas, and it's one solid mass of metal around that, and when some guy's going up with cleats trying to get to the top of the pole, they slide right down.
Look, and the arts and crafts signs are still all over town, and they've got them up on the poles like 10 feet off. You can't reach them, and they're probably not going to come back and do it.
Public Works is going to pull
They
this
are.
down and charge them.
Okay.
I think what should happen is, like I said, I think there should be people should put up a bond before the event. And if you don't have them down by 72 hours, the bond will cover it. I mean, we got to protect the city. There's no point in the taxpayers having to pay for all this stuff. And that's one of my strong points. Taxpayers should not be paying for this stuff because it's an economic benefit to the company that's making the money off of this thing. So if they want to make some money off of it, they should pay the business fees, and that is take down the signs or post a bond or get it done in 72 hours. Okay. Oh, yeah, prohibited signs. Let's look at this one. On page 9, line 10. An A-frame should not interfere with pedestrian ingress or egress. Should is a policy. An A-frame may not interfere, if we want to use that far. I think it's a redundancy, but it's a clarification, but it's may not should not. Any other comments? Additions, omissions? Okay, if we have no other comments, I call for a motion to continue.
All motion that we okay.
And you
Oh,
give-
is there
you give
anybody in the public who would like to speak on this matter? You do have the right if something comes up. Staff, you have no slips?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Then the motion would be is to direct staff to have the thing
Oh.
typed with all the corrections.
Make the appropriate
and
corrections.
we'll continue this until the May 5th meeting for formal adoption.
Does that?
And what about your request on putting up signs and taking them down? Are we going to put that I mean, you said if they're going to put up signs, to get permits to put up signs, and shouldn't be in there that we got to take them down. They got to take them down if it's going to be bonded. Are we going to do that?
I think that'd be a council, that's another ordinance. But again, we
So
do
the
have
permit
illegals.
process.
We do have
Temporary.
they're illegal if they're still up. Actually, they shouldn't have been put up, but they are illegal, and we have a procedure for removal of illegal and abandoned signs.
And I think,
And I think
we
that'll cover
said
it.
in the abandoned sign is a sign which has no longer displayed the use or name of the business establishment to which the sign was approved for or has been discontinued, the operation and the use of the business for a period of 6 months. That's consistent with the other provisions.
Yeah,
So
that's
6
abandoned.
months, then it's abandoned, and then there's provisions in our other ordinance that says abandonment will institute it or it'll be removed.
See, we don't have to wait. We don't wait 6 months for this. It's an illegal sign, period.
Yeah.
And since it's an illegal sign, there's a provision for removal of. They can move on it right away.
At our cost.
No,
Oh,
they get tagged.
okay.
Don't they get tagged, Roger?
There's a procedure where you go and give them notice and to have them remove it, and if they don't, then we go in and take formal action, have it removed, and then bill the owner or the.
There it is. Sign without further notice to the owner,
Okay, so it's
and at the
covered.
owner's expense, and place a lien on the
Right.
property if necessary.
Okay.
Don't make believers out of them.
But for a traveling group like this Arts and Craft Fair,
But see, that's where the council should get a bond when they issue those
Yeah.
permits.
And under special events, page 6, line 38, beginning and it ends with, is that a special event sign, the arts and crafts? And we are giving them 30 days in 1 year and not to exceed a cumulative display time of 30 days. That's all they get. So if they come back more than twice, and leave it up more than 2 weeks,
Not in their interest.
not in their interest, right? Okay. So I think we've covered it.
Okay. So, with the provision for continuing to allow staff to make all the appropriate changes we've discussed and recommended by the City Council, the City Attorney, your motion, you moved?
I made that motion.
Commissioner Yver moved.
I second.
Commissioner Gilardi seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Continue.
So next meeting, we're going to review it again.
We're going to adopt it.
Adopt it.
Yeah.
We are.
We are. No, we're going to recommend adoption.
Recommend it.
Okay.
Recommend it.
All right.
Recommend
That
adoption.
sounds good.
Because-
I'll make sure.
And that will make 3 years.
That's what I want to hear. Hopefully.
That's 2 of us. I want to go on a new project. I don't want to take on too many projects. If you got too many on the books, you don't get any of them done. You don't get them done in a timely manner, and so then your credibility is gone. I want the credibility of the commission to move quickly on permits and move solid on
And
regulation.
we shall do that.
And we embarked upon this in August of 2011.
August.
It was given back to us
From
City
the council,
in
yeah.
May.
In May, yeah.
So,
Okay. Next item on the agenda is consider adopting zoning classification of municipal code section 110250 for drop-off recycle facilities. What do we
Mr.
want to do
Chairman,
with the staff?
members of the commission. So staff was looking through a municipal code and found that there's no differentiation between recycling facilities and drop-off facilities. In the staff report, you could see there's a table that at the very top you can see recycling facilities and drop-off, and they're only permitted in industrial. We had the recycling facilities.
I think what Matt is trying to say is that if somebody wanted to encourage recycling of plastic bottles and everything, the only place that we could put a drop-off would be out there by George Diaz's and the Mission Vineyard Road, clear out there of town. And it really lacks the functionality to promote recycling in the downtown, next to the Windmill Market, Neal's Market, or anywhere in town, to make it convenient for encouraging people to recycle these plastic products and aluminum cans. And in our current zoning ordinance, it made no differentiation between a recycling operational facility where you have a lot of presses and big balers and stuff like that, than a drop-off. And we felt that there should be a separation. A recycling plant that crunches big bales and stuff should be an industrial. But the drop-off that's really for citizens around our community, next to a shopping center and throughout our community, should be available, and it should be permitted in more commercial districts in the downtown area that would facilitate that need to recycle. And when we looked at it, we said, hey, that's great. We wanted to there, and we, on the second and the back page, we changed the graph to show you what we felt was appropriate, and we've earmarked it so that it'd be permitted in there. We added a S designation for it that we says because there is potential for bottles and stuff to go not being contained and removed, is we wanted a site review so that puts you in charge to where you could make certain conditions to say, hey, wait a minute, you got to clean it up every night. You got to don't open it before 8:30 or 9 o'clock because we don't want you clanging bottles at 6 o'clock in the morning. And so there's just some little common things that you would review there. We have an applicant that came to us with this problem, and it was brought to our attention that our code lacked this specificity and this flexibility, and they're in the audience, and they'll be speaking to you tonight on this very same issue.
Okay.
So that's what you were trying to say?
Yes.
I'd just like to synthesize it.
Okay, who will be, you're the applicant, sir?
Yes, sir. Dave there.
Okay, and tell us what's happening here. Then we got the staff version. Let's hear the nitty gritty.
We'd like to open up the convenience recycling. My name is Dave Nichols, and this is the job to be owners for the kids recycling.
Now, are you in the business now, or is it something you're going to propose?
We are in the business. I do other recycling in other places, but this is one place that we'd like to open a convenience recycling to help the community out, to make it easier for people to bring their recyclables in. Just CRV only. We're no big operation with big machines or nothing like that. It's just a little mom and pop thing. You can bring it in and we'll take it out to a processor. It's just considered a drop-off zone is all it is. When we leave at night, everything's folded up. We go home, you can't even tell us anything's there. And then we come back the next morning, open up, and continue business. Fold it up the next night again and go home. Nothing permanent. I think the place that we'd like to open it would be over by Mills Market over there, 54 Muckalemme Street. That's where we'd like to do it. And that's a problem we ran into when we had talked to Mr. Rinsley and Matt. It was industrial zoned, and commercial zone, like you said, and we need to be in an industrial zone area. So that's what we're asking is if we could get over there, either spot zone that, or I don't know what you exactly would do to be able to work in a commercial zone area, small like that. Let's see. And another thing I'd like to do is also, if we could get this thing through, is I'd like to put together a program for the schools to teach the kids about recycling. Go over there and show them what the program's all about, things like that. Get them tuned up on that, such as, just bring their stuff in and get it recycled. And then also I'd like to get involved with the city events. I'd like to supply the recycling containers to put out for the city and maintain those for them, which would save the city money. Would have, they don't have to go out and put it out or anything like that. Have your guys pick it up or anything. I would put it all out and
It's always been an issue
throughout all your events and everything. And with the gathering of that stuff, I could pay the city the CRV value on all the containers that we gather up. So you can make money that way too. And then when I take them in and process them, then I get my money back on all that stuff. So there's two ways that you can save money. from having to maintain them, and then also you get paid for all that recycling also. So it's a benefit. Not much one, I mean, you're not going to get rich off of it, but still, every little bit helps.
I think, you know, I understand what you're doing because I understand the state laws relating to reduction of solid waste in the landfills. Things that concern me as a commissioner is, and I'm not beating on you, that it's kept clean, that it does not become just a, I want it to look like a neat operation. And that's one of the things that concerns me. Because you get a bunch of stuff out there, the paper starts flying, it comes off the labels and whatnot, and next thing you know, you got a junkyard. And I don't want a junkyard in downtown because Neal's is on the entryway to the city.
Right.
And so any conditions that would be placed on you would be very serious about,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know.
we took all that into consideration as far as keeping it clean and, you know, because we know that is a main entrance into the city. And that's one thing that we really focus on, is keeping it very clean and ordered.
Okay.
That's one of the most important things that I thought about.
And then you will need signing, and I guess when you go for your permit, this would be part of a package. You want to have
Our signs,
appropriate
we'll fold them up, take them with us at nighttime. It'll just be little, like A-frame things you can fold up, tape. You know.
Nasty word. Nasty word in our sign code. Signs. Signs. No, signs have to basically, they're not for you, they're for the public to find you.
Yes.
But we want it to be a good-looking sign to be there.
Well, I'll make some up and make sure that it's approved through the city. You know.
Okay. Commissioners, any other thoughts that we've missed, that I've missed?
What we're really doing here, or I'm asking you, what are we really doing here is recommending to City Council a change in zoning.
We're recommending a zoning ordinance amendment.
And one of our arguments would be, because we've heard a presentation which will come as an application later?
No.
No?
It was just the fact that we want to change the ordinance to allow certain uses to occur. He's not in the picture yet.
He's not in the picture yet.
But he's the reason we're doing this, because
Okay.
we hadn't thought about it. Staff, let's see, the ordinance didn't cover this. So
okay.
we're going to do it right the second time, like we do everything else here. But I think this is critical. This is something needed. Cities were getting fined based on the amount of solid waste that's taken out, and we don't need that. So we've got somebody who's willing to help us on it.
They do have machines that are going to start being mandatory for stores to buy. What were those called?
Reverse recycling.
Reverse recycling machines, which are very expensive. And stores, it's a big old machine you have sitting outside there. You go put your recyclables in it, and it spits money out. And the stores just don't want to go buying those things because they're just very expensive.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be forced to do if you don't have a zone drop-off area for recyclables.
I have a question. We currently have, through Recology, homeowners have a recycling bin that's
Right.
picked up every week. So,
Right.
But a lot of people do scavenge. So is it people like that who are going to come to you?
Yeah, so what they'll do is they'll make money off their stuff that they recycle from ecology. They don't pay them for that when they pick it up. They take it for free,
Yeah.
and they'll take it out to a processor. They make money off of it that way. This way here, some of the money comes
Yeah.
back into the community, you know, so,
I like the idea of having you out during special events because
yeah.
we need.
That would save the city I don't know how much it would save them, but I know I was out the other day looking, there was 4 guys out cleaning up garbage cans, you know, and they wouldn't have to do that. I would maintain all that
Yeah.
stuff. So, yeah, I think it would save a little bit of money for the city on that aspect.
So what will, you cannot recycle at Neal's now because we have no ordinance to allow that. Is that right?
I have my state license and everything.
And it
which
would take two or three months to go through, from our recommendation through City Council and public hearings to decide on the zoning change. And then we could take an application after that for this project.
How did the other guy get in?
He just started, had been there for years, and then he just closed up.
Did he have permission or just
No,
kinda-
he didn't have any permit.
There was
Squatted.
2 previous businesses there for recycling.
Yeah.
in that
But no
same area.
permits that he can live
Yeah.
on?
Your only option would be is to consider a variance. A variance is where it's an unusual circumstances, it's maybe a right bestowed upon adjacent property owners, or it's a need, necessity for the public interest, or, and that's the justification for a variance to,
Yeah, it would have to be very, very, very specific.
very, very specific.
Because the variance is, the proper method is the reclassification or rezoning. And variances can become illegal very quickly.
Right.
Because it becomes a special favor, economic advantage to somebody. And the law is pretty clear on that.
I think there's a pretty stiff fee for variance application, isn't there?
I think they reduced
It used to be hundreds of dollars, or thousands, someone told me once.
Used to be, yeah. I don't know what it is now, but so
Oh, what do you do here? No, there's no question that the use is needed. Public necessity and convenience.
Yeah.
Public convenience and necessity.
I know the bar is set high for variance to justify it, and stuff like that.
You might look into that for us.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I think we should taking the potential applicant out. The fact that putting that section in the ordinance, I think, is a plus. I think staff should be moving on that, based on commission support with it. But and just get that done, and then at the same time look into this public convenience and necessity. But yeah.
I'd like to hear, when we get on to the application process, which I know is later, I'd like to hear what the county recycling agency who makes presentations to city council every year, what their take is on this method of handling recycle.
Well, if you see the amount of stuff that these guys collect, a lot of people use them. See, the bottom line is, I think Commissioner Hubert is right. If it's there, you use it. If it isn't there, it goes in the garbage can.
I'm all in favor of the idea. I just wonder what Mandy Rose would think of this as head of the recycle.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
we
true.
do have a contract with recycling, so I don't know how this would fit in.
Good point.
Well, we probably should check that, but in any event, I think the ordinance should be amended.
Yes, we need more, and we would have review of it. I like that addition.
For the power to close it down if it gets out of hand. I mean, that's the beauty of it. But I do think the ordinance ought to be amended. No maybe about it.
I look at it, it's a part of going green, and, it's a recycling day for a better tomorrow for San Juan Bautista.
I like to be a leader in things.
I do know, I practice recycling almost everything at my house, but I take out all the plastic bottles and aluminum cans, and then we take them down and get cash for
Do you?
them.
My dad would do that with his beer.
Yeah.
It would just be more beer money.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody counts. Okay, did that give you some direction as to how the commission feels about this? Does that give you a feeling?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so we're not opposed to it. We have laws that we can't break ourselves.
Right, I realize that, yeah.
So we're going to work on that too. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So what are we going to do now?
Does the public, anybody in the public want us to pick? Do you have any cards?
I do not.
We have no cards. Okay.
That was a discussion item, so we don't take action.
Oh, it just says consider.
Okay. But I would think that we
Trish, it's an
can
action
do
item.
this
Oh,
though.
it's an action item?
It was, yeah.
I would call for a motion to ask staff to start a preparation of an ordinance amendment,
And
that would allow an amendment. Prepare an amendment to the ordinance to account for recycling facility drop-offs in other than an industrial district. It doesn't mean you have to allow it. It means that somebody can apply under the use permit. And if it isn't the right place, it's not an issue. If it's the right place and it's what you want in the city, that's where it could go. That's where the person can apply for.
so we're going to take the action today to ask staff to prepare this?
Yeah, we can do
Okay.
that. Because we have nothing to work with right now.
Okay.
And it is a public hearing anyway
And
for an
we'll
ordinance amendment.
come back next meeting
Staff can,
with
next meeting,
with the changes.
staff,
Yes, writing it down.
you can do that for the next meeting? You have a draft ordinance amendment? Okay,
Are we going to get somebody here from San Benito County to?
if they want to show, it's a public hearing, so Everybody can appear and be heard.
So is the staff going to look into make sure there's no conflict?
Yes.
Okay.
If there is, we'll get that message next
Yeah.
meeting also.
I don't think
But let's
there is.
find out.
I mean, I don't think there's enough we could do for recycling.
Yeah.
I mean, there's,
When you look around and see all the stuff all over the place.
right,
Especially after this weekend.
yeah. So I think it's just a step in the
So
right
I
direction.
suppose my especially after this weekend is a second to his motion.
Oh, would you like to make a second? Would you like to second that motion?
I would like to
That
second
we
that
amend
motion.
it?
Okay.
Mhm.
So Commissioners Medeiros and Galarte, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, that's that. So we're in the right direction.
Thank for the presentation, too.
Yes, thank you. That's, I mean, you don't, from up here, you don't know what's happening down there until you talk to the people who are actually doing it or affected by it. So thank you. Okay, the next item here is selection of a local business or property owner for annual certificate of recognition, May being National Preservation Month. Last month we asked Commissioners Guibert and Goularte to prepare recommend a business to be recognized, and Commissioner Guibert.
Okay, we considered a number of choices, and our final choice was to nominate Vertigos, not only for its adaptive reuse of the building, but also revitalizing the economy, providing a forum for community discussions. I meet there every Friday with ladies I walk with, and we see lots of other people meeting, people having business meetings. I've heard that there's a chess group that meets. So I think it's a good business. It's a good adaptive reuse of the building, and we revised the proclamation to make it shorter.
Fits on one page.
Well, it did before, but it's so. Do you
Let's
want me
see.
to read it, or?
I would add one thing at the top, Planning Commission of the City of San Juan.
And should it be a proclamation?
Can the planning commission issue a proclamation,
Sure.
or
We can honor anybody.
is that the city council's prerogative?
It's the city council pretty much to, I get these requests from all organizations and agencies all over, so I don't understand why the planning commission couldn't make their bid for a proclamation as well.
What you're suggesting is that the city mayor signs it, not the Frank. Mr.
Yes,
Frank.
it would be a
It
proclamation
would be
of the
from
city.
them.
That's what we did last time. The commission basically recommended that the certificate, that the recognition be made by the council at a council meeting,
Okay.
at which Commissioner Guibert read the. Didn't you read the thing?
Yes, I think she
I
did.
The Hawks?
Well, you were there too.
You read it.
I think you read it, because I remember Tony Bach complimented you on how you read it. And he never did me.
And you can let you read it.
Okay.
Could I,
But yeah, but I think that's the way it should be. I think this is more than the commission. I think our mission as a commission has been basically to represent the public and make recommendations for a lot of good stuff and approve good projects. But I think this one is citywide, and I think citywide at that level should be the council, because I think it should be more than this body. I think it should be the guys at the top should be recognizing the folks who are making things happen for us.
Vanda, when I reread this, I'm thinking, Mr. Chairman, that maybe number one should be pedestrian, that they are very supportive of pedestrian orientation. That is one of our goals because of the way they approach the street.
Right, and they're at a gateway, so it's
Yes,
very
they're at a
welcoming.
gateway, so it really sets the pace for what one of our goals is.
So how would you
I
phrase
just, we're supportive of pedestrian-oriented and tourist
Support.
oriented
Upgraded,
business.
extended, engaged, applied, exemplified.
It has to be
Supported.
supported.
supported? Yeah.
Supported,
The policy or the goal of,
or it supports the city's policy for pedestrian orientation or pedestrian-oriented uses.
Well, then we'll have to change the tense of all the others.
well, just put supported, then, the city's,
Okay, their
Goal,
action supported.
policy.
Okay, their action supported. What?
The city's policy.
on
what you
pedestrian
said.
orientation.
Okay. The city's policy of?
Uh-huh.
Or the general plan.
Or the general plan, which do you want?
General plan.
I think general plan because we're having that so much in mind right now.
Policy of
Policy,
pedestrian orientation
orientation.
in the commercial areas?
Let's do.
Well, then maybe,
I don't know about commercial area. Isn't it mixed use down there still?
It's commercial.
Just commercial, not mixed use?
I think it's a general term.
Okay.
okay, so do you agree with that?
I buy.
Maybe
I support it. Oh, yeah, no, when I first met, I've been buying stuff from Dimitri for a long time. He used to deliver the stuff until he built his new building. But I always thought that he should have a big dumpster in there and encourage people to get their mail, come over here, have a cup of coffee, and go through the mail, dump their junk, and at least open it. I mean, to me, the post office should be the center of town, since everybody has to go there. But you're stuck with stuff, and there's not a lot of benches out here to do anything with. So if you sit down at Vertigo, you sit there, clean up your mail, have a cup of coffee or two and some munchies. That was just a dream.
Yeah, so it could happen now if we have our recycler in town.
There you go.
Okay, so I'll revise the letter, and I'll get it to you, and then you'll send it to them, and then we'll invite them to the May
Council meeting.
City Council meeting.
Okay, so what I'm looking for a motion then is to, let's see, recommend to the City Council that Kitty and Dimitri and Kitty Friedman, the owners of Vertigo Coffee, be recognized.
I was going to say, not only is their building adaptive reuse, but they themselves are constantly reinventing their business. They started with coffee, and they do breakfast, they do lunch, sandwiches, pizzas, which I think so many
Wood-fired pizzas.
our businesses have to reinvent themselves to be economically vital.
We need to back up a little. That's the business. What about the property owner? Do we also recognize the property owner?
Oh,
For leasing it to the right people? Who is the property owner?
Judith Kane.
Judith King?
I think so.
well then, have we done that before? Well,
No, but in the two other cases,
They own the property.
They own
Yeah,
the property.
yeah.
This is the first time we've done a business separate from the property owner.
Well, I still think that, I'm sure the investment was Dimitri,
I bet it was.
and I'm sure there's a long-term lease to do it in.
How about inviting the property owner to come to share in the picture and so forth?
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
you wouldn't?
I want to focus on Dimitri and Kitty.
Okay.
Because, if you get it too
That
far,
was-
next thing you're going to have us
that's
in
the
there.
initial intention.
And wait a minute, we lose the impact.
Well, then you won't want to hear my next point. I was wondering
Oh.
about inviting Rick Morales, or naming him, or maybe that would be another time.
What?
Rick Morales was the local craftsman. He did that property. He did the Ponzinis, which I wish we'd acknowledged as well.
Didn't we did?
I don't think we did.
No, and
Wait, that was the first one.
Yeah.
he did that.
He did.
He's a local contractor who has done
Yeah,
all
I
of
know
his
him
good
quite
work.
well. Tell you what, let's back off then. Yeah, the focus has to be on the guys who put up the money for the job, and it's their dream that they, like I said, we don't build things, the folks do, and so it was his dream to have this for a long time, and he made it happen. It was done through local craftsmen, and he had a property owner that was supportive. So I would recognize him. I would mention the others. They might want to stand and be seen. But the focus has to be on them because they're the ones, this is somebody's dream that he made happen.
So we worked with a property owner to make this dream happen or somewhat?
Well, engage local,
person's
engage local craftsmen.
That would be Rick Morales.
Yeah. Yeah, no names in there, just local, engage local craftsmen. That's just a...
Dave? Yeah. Dave? No. Yeah.
Oh, is that what that is? We're still learning. Okay. Is that better?
I don't know where to put it this time.
Yeah. Not a
So
fun
you're
hole.
gonna make a motion?
Is that better?
Okay, so
Did
we
we? Oh, go ahead.
we got a resolution, not a resolution, we have a document we want to put forth. So so our action would be, say, to ask staff to put this in a presentation form, and maybe we should pass a resolution to the extent that commissioners, on recommendation of the committee of the committee of the Planning Commission, Vertigo has been found to meet the requirements of for Preservation Month, and I wish I thought of this because I want it to go tonight. Let's just send it up. Okay, we'll ask staff to put it in the appropriate form, and we've got all the whereas and wherefores in there. She'll take care of the bottom of this thing. And so basically we're just asking the City Council to formally recognize through this presentation to meet Vertigo Coffee
At their May meeting.
At its May meeting.
at its May meeting. Yeah. Does
And
that
then
sound
we
good?
would look at it again the 1st of May, and 2 weeks later is the council meeting when this would be.
Oh, just a second
presented.
shot at this.
Yes.
No, this is April?
This is only April. This is preparation from the month.
Okay, then we could do a resolution. To send to, we'll attach a resolution to this saying, hey, council, the attached document, we want you to approve and recognize publicly people who have done something with the city. Mr. Ponce?
I'm a little confused here.
You're in good company.
I thought we were honoring somebody that restores and preserves a building, like we did the clock shop the last time. I think we're getting a little off. You know, if we're talking about a business, there's other businesses that are also contributing.
But he did restore the building.
He took a corner at the entryway to the
Yeah,
city.
I was thinking maybe you can compare it to what Jim West did to the Zeller House.
Which
To me, that's more restoring and preserving than that building. I mean, what was it before it was a coffee shop?
A building.
What do you preserve?
Soft water.
Soft water? And before that, it was
a cabinet shop.
printing shop in the old days.
Yeah.
And a cabinet shop.
So I think
no
when we
cabinet shop.
initially started to do
That's
this,
in the warehouse in the back.
it was
Oh.
to preserve
It used to be,
and
soft
to
water.
restore a historical building. That's what I thought we initially started this
Well, the
thing.
building was built in 1930, so it is old.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
historic.
Yeah.
There-
I think it's what we're looking for is, well, it was a recommendation of our subcommittee, but it meant all of these things to bring. It's an entryway project, really, and it's a place for people to meet. It's in an older building, and I think the adaptive reuse of this thing, I think, is critical. And with Historic Preservation Month, and it's a way to
To honor somebody for doing
to get
well.
people focusing on the city. And what I would like to see, is more of this.
Yeah, okay, well, anyway,
It may be, like I said, it may be we may have to do this twice a year, but at least for May, Preservation Month, we need to get.
so
We
we're
want
going to do
something
this
up
every month, or is this going to be a yearly?
No, this would be yearly right now.
Here.
But we'll hold that
Annually.
thought for next year.
Yeah, because we have Kara Vox house, she did a
Yeah.
beautiful job.
We haven't done any
Ellen
residences yet.
Yeah, we haven't done
residential.
it, and that was my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When-
Okay.
Is it just going to be one recommendation, or is it going to be one person or one business annually?
Right
or-
now it is.
What would you want? We could do one business and one residence.
Yeah, that's what I was
There's
thinking,
certainly
doing a
lots
private
to choose
residence.
from.
We haven't branched out yet because we wanted to give it
Yeah.
a go.
We
See
weren't
how
sure,
it's
we
gonna
weren't
go.
sure this was going to work.
So next year, should we do that?
It'll
One
work.
business and one residence?
It's also, you have JJ's Hamburger that started up before
Yeah.
Vertigo Coffee, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Where do you draw the line?
JJ's is going to be tied
Owned by
into
the
the
same-
brewery now. That'll be
You got the
something.
Rock Shop that moved in.
Well, it sounds like we want to do more than one.
Well, there's a lot to choose from. But I think, you know, you make a decision, and we asked for a recommendation. They made one, gave us justification for picking it. I'm prepared to go with it.
So, who's going to make a motion?
I think the presentation was made by Commissioner Guibert. Would you like to move that we move on this thing?
I would.
I'll second.
Second, on
We'll
favor?
listen to the vote.
Aye.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I said aye.
Abstaining?
We'll go for the year.
Say
So
aye.
this will be prepared, staff will bring us a resolution.
Yeah?
He said aye.
Oh, he said, okay.
Yeah.
I what?
No?
All right, I'd like to propose that next year,
That's all right.
in the month of May, we do one business and one residence.
Want to try that? Okay. You want to have a subcommittee for residential, subcommittee for,
Well, now,
Well, let's worry about that next year.
We're talking about buildings, and so then we're changing it. You're recommending that next year we do a business
And a private
Yeah.
residence.
and a private residence, and honor the business rather than the building.
well, you know,
Well, no.
wait a minute. The whole point of this thing is we're trying to upgrade the city.
Yes.
All these different things in the city need cleaning up. We need things to be attractive, to draw people in there. This place is swamped on Saturday mornings. I mean, there's a line of cars on both sides. They're doing something right. We want people to come downtown. Give them a reason to come downtown. He made a reason to come downtown. Need a place to sit, to watch it, look at your mail? There's a place downtown. Now, I'm not opposed to residences. But people don't come to San Juan first to see residences. They come to see the Mission, the park, and downtown. So that's why we focus on commercial.
I disagree with that. They come to see San Juan as a rural, historical place to visit. I think it's all of the above. And I think private residents should be included.
Okay.
Excuse me, would you sign a card before you speak?
I think, I mean, we all participate in the economy of the city. And I think it should be recognized for those people who make it more attractive for the economy of the business of the town.
Well, the first onslaught, Commissioner, was that commercial area.
It's an investment. When you do all that work, and you,
But the commercial area is the one that was hurting and needed a shot in the arm, and these folks have all been doing something.
that's fine. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying we should do more of it.
We thought
all I'm
maybe
saying.
we'd do it once a month, but we didn't
I'm
have
not saying
the
Hey,
time.
we got
should do this or
agendas
do that. I'm
to
saying
get
we
tied
should
up
do more
here.
of it.
Have another speaker?
I just wanted to suggest.
Your name, please, for the record.
My name's Mariana Thomas. I would like to suggest that you read the National Preservation Magazine, since you have so many historic houses, and see, because they have articles every month or every 3 months when the magazine comes out on exactly this topic, where someone takes an old building or an old house and restores it and makes it viable. It is something that, since I've been here, I've brought many people's attention to, because the landlords that you have on 3rd are not doing this. And those of us who do have old buildings and spend all our money, putting work 24/7 into them, are really paying attention. And we do have people come by just about every day and either look at the garden or ask to see the house. So I'm not here to toot my own horn, but you really should read National Historic Preservation Magazine to have the right focus for this award.
Thank you.
Thank you for tooting.
What I was trying to say when Vanda said businesses, I wanted to focus it back
On the
onto
building,
buildings,
yeah. That's fine.
all over, not just
Okay, well,
business.
you can focus on the building. It's still done by somebody,
Yes.
making their dream happen, using all these other goodies here.
Well, they were using the building.
Okay, so we have a motion to prepare the documents. Is that pretty clear for staff? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so next item. Thank you. Okay, designate a planning secretary. I put this one on the agenda. Under Chapter 2-3 of the Municipal Code of the City of San Juan Bautista is boards and commissions. Under, let's see, Section 2-3-120, officers, the Planning Commission shall elect a chairman and a vice chairman from among the regular members and shall appoint a secretary who need not be a member of the commission for the terms in the manner set forth by the bylaws of the commission. Okay, we have a deputy city clerk who has been functioning as our secretary, and I thought she should be recognized and honored for being a part of the planning team and basically being a planning secretary for the commission if she would accept that. And so I would look for a nomination or a motion to designate Trish Pates as the secretary of the commission. Your motion for that effect.
I'd like to make a motion that we name Trish Pates as our secretary for the Planning Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. That's just another hat. You don't get a pay raise for it, but since you are doing the work, I don't know. It just seems to me that makes you. I feel like you're part more, officially part of the planning team, not designated assistant, whatever. Okay, so that's good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda. Discussion items, the brewery building. Something's happening down there.
I guess.
Staff?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the staff report kind of highlights progress that's going on. It's a little bit slower than we anticipated, but they're moving along. Just to kind of fill you in on some of the things, the owner has relieved the original architect and has gone a different direction with a different engineering and architectural firm. So that caused a few problems and stuff. They're back on board. They've got the frame up and the roof rafters, and it's protected. And now they're starting on the siding. We've examined a lot of the old siding that came off of that, and it was pretty poorly bad shape, the redwood. So we couldn't really use a lot of it. So we're going to use some of it, but most of the wood trim and stuff like that is in the back, and they've milled it, cleaned it up, and they'll be using it for the wood trim when the windows come in. We've approached the siding, and I was concerned that it would not give us the appearance of the older look, and I got a hold of a seasoned painter that's worked on a paint company for a number of years. He's given us a couple hints on how to make the existing siding in the rough texture and give it the grainy look as old before we would seal it and then paint it to a
Nice enough.
So that's kind of where we're at. We've incorporated on the porch some of the 6x6 posts that we had there. We were -1, so we had to put a new Douglas fir post in there. And then on the internal studs, I think we took some pictures of it where we were able to mill and then incorporate some of the internal studs and stuff like that. We still have a lot of trim that we're reconditioning, and that'll be put in the final thing there. One of the last items is and I think I've mentioned it too before, the landscaping plan, and that'll be coming back to you. I got the plans, and I did not like the way it was, and I sent it back for further consideration, and then they resubmitted it. There is some plant selections I wasn't happy with. They're changing those, and then I'll bring that back at your next meeting with the official plan so you can take there. Now, also, right around the corner is that down the line is that they're going to be selecting the exterior color, and I have a board here that I put together, and I asked the owner to come up with some recommendations, or the colors that they would select. And he says, well, that's up to the planning commission and you guys. So now it's in all.
Thanks, guys.
So what I want you to do between now and the next meeting is to take this board and kind of look at it and see what you feel would be appropriate for the exterior colors.
You'll have it posted in here.
Yeah.
Did you find out?
Here. And then any one of you can take this home and look at it and then, give me your opinion and stuff like that. The owner was agreeable to say whatever the planning commission feels is appropriate, he'll do. So he's been very cooperative to work with.
Did you ever find out what the original colors were?
I went and scratched and couldn't determine that. And I think maybe Mr. Ponce is there. Do you recall what the original color was before it was painted to the...
Yeah, before it was that barn red, I kind of think it was sort of a gray.
A grayish, yeah.
I like gray.
Yeah, that's what...
Almost white.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask, the canopy, is that going to wrap around all the way to Pierce Lane, or is it going to end where it is now?
It's going to end where it's in now, yeah.
I thought we were going to wrap it around Pierce Lane. No?
Canopy, we followed that original application and went across the door, was extended for 6 posts.
Yeah.
And with a canopy there,
Yeah, because the original, the photograph that we're working off of has a canopy just, or the porch just on the front.
On the front.
But when we lived there, it wrapped around
We thought,
to Pierce Lane.
So
I think
that-
Georgiana remembers that. It goes up
yeah,
to Pierce
I
Lane.
wanted,
So
And
that was put on later after.
that was said before we were there, and that was in the 30s. Yeah. Okay, it looks
I
great, by
like
the way.
that.
What color would you like to see, Richard?
I would like to see a gray, some kind of a gray.
He probably has 10 different kind of grays there.
Certainly, I would encourage Richard to come forward and then pick his selection and everything, and then we can go forward. Now, one other problem that we have, and that is the roofing. And originally, we were going to go with a shake roof, not a shake roof, but a redwood shingle there. The insurance company will not insure it. I called around to 3 different insurance agencies, and I said, well, what happens if we fire retard it and everything? And they said that they would insure it, but fire retardant is only good for anywhere from 7 to 8 years. And then they said that there would be no guarantee that they could establish it. So now we're into a complex situation where we can't restore it back into this without insurance and stuff like that. So now our options is to go some type of asphalt, triple layer, very similar to what we did in the library, okay? Or we can go to a what the Native Daughters put on, and that was very similar to a kind of a wood shake roof, but that's a metal roof, And then the third option would be is a concrete shingle.
It looks like a concrete.
Wood.
It looks like a shake. Yeah, shake.
It looks like shake, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our options, and then we've got to. They'd like to get the roof on, within the
Concrete
next
shake.
30 days.
Concrete.
excuse me,
That'll last a
You think?
lifetime.
You think
They
the?
make the composite look just like shingles.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman,
Oh, they do. This.
Yeah.
This stuff here.
Like the,
is she hearing
Doesn't
what
look like a
Roger's
shake, though.
saying? Because the public really wants to hear all of
yeah, if
that.
you take, like the one on the far end right there,
Okay.
the brown one,
Uh huh.
that one or the one way over there, yeah.
But they make the concrete ones look like shakes.
Right.
They're thin.
How do they compare price-wise?
They're pretty
Probably a little
expensive.
bit more expensive.
These are very expensive.
These are,
Those are?
what, 40 years guaranteed?
These are 40 and 50. The AAA's are
50 to 40 years, yeah.
They call them TLs.
Have you seen them
So-
places?
Oh, yeah. They're all over the place.
So
Not
again,
old
this
buildings
is just for discussions and just food for thought, and then we'll be bringing it back to you at the.
Is there any way we can get an artist rendition of the colors?
Well, we could take the same
Yeah.
thing here, and then if you give us some direction, I can't color all 20 or 30 of them. But
You guys don't have
we could select the ones that I think that we feel would be apropos, and then we could have one that would be colored up to give you a presentation for it.
Why don't we just go with the colors that they had before they tore it down? It was red and white.
That's what I think.
Red and white, huh?
Not white.
I would like a barn.
Red and black.
Yeah.
I just think we need some color.
The old train station, huh?
You mean the warehouse is not enough down on the
That's
other
not
end?
color. That's correct.
Won't fade?
No, I mean
It would.
Dante's
But that'd be
warehouse.
okay.
Keep in mind, it's a real focal point. When you look down Third, that's what you see. So, you know.
It really stands out now.
It really, and so that's what I'm saying about color. I mean, I don't know about gray or third, I know we're all getting there, but, you know, that's really the focal point.
What color do you think, Mariana?
Well, I think since it is in such a focal position, that it should be a striking color. I don't mean loud or anything, but something
Yeah.
that really,
We didn't want to choose a a color that was too close to the Alicia building across, because then it would give it the same there, and I think it should be a little bit
Because when
different.
you look down,
I
you
like
really
what
see
Richard
that.
said, is maybe a little gray, with a dark gray and a different color, but that's more colonial. But,
Did you say someone was here today from the brewery?
No,
No, they're not here, okay.
Again, he was cooperative to say what planning commission feels is necessary, he'll go along.
Nice.
Can I add one more thing? The other buildings where Doña Esteves is now, all those other buildings that were there that got burned during the fire, they were all like a light gray color. The old newspaper office.
Yeah, in the Europa Hotel.
Yeah, they were all a light, sort of a light gray.
Thank you.
I like green.
Okay, we'll have to
Just
study.
food for thought, and I'm going to leave this here, and feel free to stop by and give
Maybe
me
we
your-
can do a survey on Bonito Link, choosing the color.
Or put this at the post office or somewhere.
Yeah. Put it under the
Awareness.
glass.
That's not a bad idea.
At least it'll get them talking.
Citywide contest.
Yeah.
You want to move on that?
Oh, coloring.
You want to move on that?
Well, how would we solicit people's input? You could say it's
Come to
there.
our next meeting.
Call the planning commission office.
There's a point where you invite people to make comment, but you can't lead them to drink the Kool-Aid or the water. So it's really, you guys are the planning body, and you have the final say.
It's a representative form of government, so we have
Yeah.
representatives. We got tagged to
Well,
represent them.
can we put this in the City Hall office rather than in here?
Oh, yes. I'll have it out in the lobby.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so what's our final thing there? Staff will put that in the lobby, and we'll just keep waiting on regular
And at
reports.
the next meeting, we should all have an idea of what color we'd recommend.
Okay.
And then think about the roofing material.
And roofing, yeah. Concrete.
And I'm actually disappointed that it doesn't wrap around. I thought we were going to have it wrap around that end to give some life to that bleak-looking.
I think we had wrapped
Elevation.
around the porch.
That wasn't our agreement, right? We
I
had
thought
that
we
old
were gonna
picture
wrap
that showed
around.
just in the front.
But I also thought we was going to wrap around some.
The porch was, I think, what we continued around, but then the overhead covering.
Oh, I
think, is
see.
what
The
we
porch
had.
itself is wrapping around,
Yes,
so
but
it
the
can.
overhang is not
Okay.
going to be.
The canopy is not going to be just in the
I see.
front, but the porch will be wrapped around. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, our next discussion item is D'Ambrosio Vista PUD. Staff.
Yes, members of the Planning Commission and Chairman, I've attached our staff report, and what has happened is the applicant is in the audience, is that it was approved, and I gave you the copy of the 40 units here and the 37 conditions, but over the last year and a half, the owners have solicited contractors that want to build the thing, and they're coming with a conclusion is that the rural atmosphere of San Juan and its distinction here, that people still like single-family lots, side yard setbacks, front and rear yards and everything. So they came back with a design proposal for 27 lots that are a little bit more open and more in traditionally what you'll find in Creek Bridge and around the area. And so I'm going to invite Steve Emmerich to the podium and everything. He can kind of give you an overview of it. I think the plan serves it well, is that the density would be less. It's right on the cusp of what an R2 would be. We could probably maybe encourage maybe one or two more, and it would meet the density requirements of an R2 classification for higher density. And
Good
go
evening,
ahead.
Commissioners. My name is Steve Emick. I'm representing D. Ambrosio Brothers Investment Company. Here to echo Roger's statement and answer any questions you might have. After a year of shopping this and working with some developers, we were basically told that the project is wrong for San Juan Bautista. So we're more than willing to rework the product to try to get what the market wants and hopefully what fits better for San Juan. And after hearing what Christopher is proposing next door, I think that it fits together to make these more single-family residences, not a PUD, just a regular subdivision, and with less density, a little bit bigger lots, single-family homes, maybe some with granny quarters and so forth. We had our engineer do a new map, tentative, not tentative, a sketch, if you will, based on the grading and what he could do to accommodate less lots, more desirable layout, and I think he came up with something on the first go-around that looks pretty good. And then with what's going on next door, tying these two together might make more sense with the way we've rerouted the street and so forth into the subdivision.
Yeah, I appreciate that your willingness to work together, because I think that's so critical in a new development. I hope that we'll see something similar on the corner across the highway. I like that the new entranceway is further down 3rd Street rather than, because it was going to be more.
We're going to line it up with what's that down there.
So there'll be less congestion.
Right, it's one single street up into the hillside. We think we could phase that also, maybe do the homes along 3rd Street and one or two more in the first phase, and then that second phase do the homes up behind it on the street.
Roughly, what are your lot sizes?
Around 6,000 feet, somewhere.
So it's still PUD.
Some of them are 7,000 to 8,000 and lower, and then some of them are at the 6,000 up in the upper area.
I got one concern, because these lots right here bordering the cemetery, 27, 26, 25, and 24, and 23. That is pretty steep right in there.
We've got some, I don't know if you can see it on that plan.
Retaining walls, yes.
They've engineered some retaining walls so we can gain some more. These lots are a lot flatter. There's going to be less stepping in the foundations, which will make building it a lot easier and a lot less expensive. So there are a lot of advantages to going to this. The other thing that's changed from a year and a half ago when I was in front of you is the market has come back. When we were looking at the comps in the area back then, in 2012, I think the houses across the street in Creek Bridge were around 275,000, and we were saying this project won't work. And one of the reasons we went for that R2 density was one of the things the states was mandating your municipalities to go for that kind of density. And we were trying to make the numbers work, and the 40 units in townhomes was the only way we could even get close to making the numbers work when the housing prices were so depressed. Now that they come back, it's making a lot more sense for us to build single-family homes. I think the prices will make the project work a lot better. I think it'll fit that corner of your town a lot better, especially with what's being proposed next door. I think it'll all sort of tie together.
Don't you have a vested tentative map on the previous one?
Yes, we do.
You planning to rescind that?
Yes.
Okay.
If we can get some kind of direction from you that we can keep moving and spend some more money with our engineer to get a new map.
Okay.
You had some park area on the old map. Would you anticipate doing?
There was one little side next to the sewer plant wall, or the sewer, yeah, that could potentially put maybe a little park course in there or something, a little green belt area. Other than that, most of the land now is there's also a couple little slivers they said might be able to be deeded to the cemetery up on the top, a couple of slivers that don't really work into the development based on the drawings. So, again, this was the first sketch. We're just trying to see what the commission thinks of us making a change, and we want to move forward as fast as possible to get this going.
Commissioners, any comments? Other comments? Most of the concerns we had were vetted when we did the first one.
And the biggest thing was traffic based on densities. I think we're somewhat mitigating that by the direction we're moving.
Especially the street on 3rd Street, where it's real narrow.
Well, that's part of the conditions before the 37. I would think that particular condition would remain because that street frontage doesn't change other than the ingress there at Donner to move down to the corner of the property.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's nothing else we can do going down 3rd Street. That choke point, as Roger said, is tied, pretty tightly tied in by conditions beyond our control.
And I believe that this gelling with the Christopher will give a lot of continuity of 3rd Street where you'll have multiple outlets and it won't be restricted to either Donner or back 3rd Street to Church Street.
We can
It
make
gives it
that,
more flexibility.
we can make that a one-way street then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll solve that problem, I think.
Which one?
On 3rd, where it narrows down.
On
Pretty
3rd.
much is one way already.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna be
Yeah, but-
enlarging the other streets going out, so that would.
I'd like to see a drawing of all the streets with both projects, how that's going to work as far as traffic goes.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, between both projects, that they work together to make that flow better.
And I think what Bob Fuller said earlier was that they're doing a traffic analysis, and they generally will we have the traffic report from the D'Ambrosio, and then with a traffic report from Christopher, they'll meld, and then we can do a composite map to show that effect.
I'm with you. I'd like to see that. That and all the existing lots of the city and all the new stuff.
The preschool is no longer there, which was a big concern before.
Oh, they're out.
Isn't it? It's a home.
They,
It's a house.
we issued a building permit, and they remodeled it to a regular house, and the owner now is talking about developing the empty lot.
Well, I like the size of it much better than I liked the previous one.
And thank you for the cleanup.
Oh, sure.
Well, I see nothing on this thing that would make me say no. I think what we're talking about now is refinements of details so they can proceed with it. Anybody have any negative comments? Positive comments?
Is this going to be all done in one phase, or?
No, like I was saying, we're most likely would probably phase it 2 phases, do the 3rd Street homes and maybe 1 or 2, and then do the remainder in the 2nd phase.
But all the streets and water lines and all that will be put in?
Most likely, you do the underground and all the streets, curbs, and gutters.
Okay. Comment?
It'll still have the CC&Rs and all of those things because
that
it will not have any of those anymore because they're not townhouses.
That street will become city property, right, Roger? Water, sewer?
Yes.
I live in Creek Bridge, and we don't have a homeowners. We just have the assessed lighting assessment district.
Landscape and lighting district,
was proposing for the little sliver if we had a little maintenance there.
Okay.
Which also simplifies the project for us immensely without having to go through the HOA process.
That's a job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioners.
Okay, now, is anyone in the audience, the public, would like to speak on this project for or against? No speaker cards? Okay. I just figure in case anybody wanted to talk on this one. Okay, then we'll go to the next item.
Commissioner, Chairman, before we move on item 25 of the
25.
25,
mitigated
okay.
declarations or whatever.
Oh, okay.
The conditions. The applicant shall be responsible to meet it says exclusionary housing, but I think it should be inclusionary.
I do too. I had that.
I know we'll get to this again, but...
But that's the way it was before because we didn't proofread carefully.
Well, let me ask the applicant one question. Have you given thought to how you plan to support the inclusionary housing provisions of the city?
Well, before we were talking about doing an in lieu fee, when we were talking townhomes, we think we might have the capability now to put in quite a few granny quarters, or at least enough to offset that quite a bit. That would be our first choice versus an in lieu fee is to offer granny quarters at an affordable housing ratio that probably determines it's appropriate.
See, when you put in these secondary units and you run them at market rate, it doesn't help the cause. So we're looking for affordable and as much as a controlled rent based on whatever the standards are for different you got different categories of income, low, moderate, that type of thing, and different groups will pay or can pay different levels. And so to say we're going to have a couple of granny units out there is fine, but nobody can afford them. And we're looking for housing to meet the needs of those lower income groups. And that's what we'll be looking for in this project, as well as the other one too. So it just keep that in mind because it's not going to go away.
And I think primarily the emphasis of granny units are really to address affordable rentals, because the ownership will be with the primary lot, and then they address the rental market.
Well, one way of doing this is, and this is what I would do, I would check, and I have done, check with the housing authority and find out what is the going rate for certain kinds of units, and then let them manage it for you.
Part of it is it's somewhat determined by square footage too. If you build a granny quarters at 600 or 700 square feet, you could probably only get $700 or $800 a month for that. That's going to meet most affordable housing ratios in this Bay Area as far as demographics and income levels. So.
Okay.
But
but again, you might want to check with the county housing authority and say, hey, San Juan's down there. We got this project. We want to go through. Give us some suggestions. And I've given that suggestion before to other people. Commissioner?
No, that sounds great. I have a family member looking for a house to rent because they are approaching 80 years old. They don't want to buy a house, but they want a real house. Rather than a granny unit, it's just too small for all the stuff they have. So we need to weigh those things. I would be interested to know what Creek Ridge has done with their granny units. I know that they're metered separately, and that means 2 water bills. And if you're paying a water bill, you might as well have a house. I shouldn't say water and sewer. Yeah.
And well, those of us with granny units are supposed to find tenants from a list that the city has of
and have they?
Tenants that require.
Have they actually provided what we were hoping as inclusionary in the building of the granny unit?
There hasn't been too many changeovers in it.
No. I recommended one time that the person put in a granny unit, and I said, make it accessible. And that way I said, make a door and then have a second inside. So if you want to use it with a bigger door, you just tear this out and it's framed. Because I guess my studies showed that people with disabilities who need stuff like this, once they latch onto it, they take care of it because there's not a lot of options for them. Right. And so you get a guaranteed client who's going to take care of the property, and you don't have to worry about a lot of different
taking care of your property business, because these folks need it and they want it, and they've been shown to be good tenants because they don't have a lot of options. So that would be one way, another way of doing it. So, but again, making them accessible, and that just broadens out the number of people who can bid on it. Then you pick the client that you want. So, again, it's food for thought.
Okay.
But at least you know we're working on it.
Are you planning to have a variety of single and two stories? Or?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
I mean, we sort of have a target square footage overall for the project, but how that'll lay out, the lot sizes and so forth, will start dictating. And we'll get an architect involved again, just to get some kind of idea.
So when do you think we might see some plans? And
We're trying to push this as fast as Roger will let us.
Which we want the
we've
public
been
to know.
a year and a half.
Yeah.
Time is money. So.
Yeah.
And there's a housing need, as you know. So.
Getting there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Great,
thank you.
Thank you.
Now, any final public comments as a result of what you just heard? None? Okay, we'll go to the next item on the agenda. Update on the First Street minor subdivision.
Yeah, we'll jump over C, the Christopher Minor subdivision. We kind of touched base on that. The council approved the map. It was recorded, and it called for dedications along 3rd Street and stuff. And now with item D, updated First Street, just to bring you aware, Mr. Clower has recorded the map. There are 2 lots. He's initiated the construction on both parcels. The first frontage lot is going to be a 2-story, and then the single story will be in the back, much larger, about 2,700 square feet. And the first one is 2,300 square feet. In the cleaning and grading of the lot, we found evidence of the old El Camino Real retaining wall, and we preserved that. They did not remove it, and it's going to remain intact, and they agreed to keep it that way. The utilities are being put in probably as soon as the weather breaks and stuff like that, and things are going along fairly well.
Okay.
Any questions yet? Yeah.
Can we identify that wall as a plan line? Is that something plan lines do?
that is our next step, and I think
Okay.
that was one of the items that Matt and I identified in our plan line matrix and stuff like that, and that was to do a plan line on the El Camino Real coming from all the way from the end of Nyland Road all the way through until Thomas Road.
Till Thomas, not on, there are no footings left after that?
No footings left of that. Yeah, we're going to have to kind of take a look and see from Thomas Road north an area there and how we can get forward. I don't know.
Because it was floodplain.
It's floodplain,
Yeah.
and and
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's another project to work on. Yes.
No comments from the public? Oh, we do.
That wall that supposedly is El Camino Real, wasn't our old school there at one time? I think that might be the wall behind the school, not El
Not
Camino
El
Real
Camino.
wall.
The school used to be where Batello's house is.
Oh, it's
Up
closer.
Closer, yeah.
Batello and McCullough's.
Yeah.
That used to be the high school.
But it's also consistent with the fact that that same wall runs all the way towards the mission behind Batello's and Bacala's residence too as well.
That wall
So that
behind the
can't be,
Japanese.
so it can't be the school.
Yeah, I've always felt that that really isn't the Camino Real, because why would the stagecoaches come down that steep hill and come back up another steep hill? So I don't believe that's the El Camino Real. That's my thought.
You're heading to Watsonville.
Huh. Good thought.
We can call it that until we find out. We need to do some research.
Okay. No other comments on this? Ma'am.
Question. Since we're going to have all this extra housing, any chance that water bills will be reduced for? I mean, some of us are really struggling to pay them every month, and we have to sell off our antiques and things, and other people aren't struggling as hard. So I just thought 27 units plus 90 units plus 2 units, are we going to spread this water, the sewer? I mean, just a thought, food for thought here. For those of us who are struggling, we need to, that sewer, 75 a month is a lot.
Yeah, but that's part of the deal. I pay that much.
Well, I mean, if other people are going to be coming in, they'll be paid too, right?
Well, once Roger gets the wells all fixed up, maybe one day the water wells will come down.
It's that one day in the future that bothers me. I'd like to have something a little more.
I know. Mine's $300 a month.
I'm just hoping that this doesn't become a
I think too
deal
is,
killer, when the projects say, wait a minute, it's water.
I think too is when I was explaining the experience we're finding at the sewer treatment plant is that our flows are less than what it used to be. As the price of water goes up, people naturally conserve, and they're looking for ways. They put in plumbing fixtures that are more efficient. They don't use as much water, and it's self-generating, and we're finding that in terms of our effluent going through the treatment plant. There is less effluent.
But the trouble with San Juan is we're still dealing with a 1935 sewer plant.
Yes.
And we're enlarging this town pretty fast now with all these houses. So if that plant goes down, you're talking $3 or $4 million just to fix it.
Well, yeah.
Or more.
Or more, yeah.
Pipe it.
That's what I say. Take it to Hollisley.
Yeah, that's why, again, we do have to be concerned about that. Every time a project comes up and somebody asks a question, what's our facilities like? Because I'm glad to have new people, but not at the expense of destroying what we've got. Because then we all suffer.
And as each development comes, we scrutinize most our water demand as well as our sewer capacity. Those are two major events that.
I've had to deal with telling people, I don't have a water allocation for you, and it isn't nice. They don't take it well. But there's 10 allocations for the year, and once they're gone, that doesn't matter who you are. There's no water.
What's happening now, the blue valve that comes into this valley, they shut it off on this side of the mountain because all the water's going to LA now.
Even though when we pay our tax bill this week,
That's right.
it's on there.
Are the purple
doesn't
valves
stop.
irrigation on?
We have service to the Abbey Park, Lux Library, and the Creek Bridge, and the cemetery.
So it's up and running.
It's up and running. I think we're still getting the clearance on the cemetery.
We're waiting for Roger to get clearance from the state before we can start using this.
So the cemetery's not getting water still?
Not right now.
The infrastructure's in, and connection there. It's just a matter of now getting the map and getting the permits.
We got all the piping and all that stuff in now. We're just waiting for them to get clarification from the state that we can use it. Once they do that, then we'll hook the rest of it up.
Okay, inclusionary housing.
We'll jump over the design guidelines just to let you know that Matt and I are still working on the graphics.
Hold on, I missed that.
And I think I passed out some wayfinding things that we subscribe to, and they're giving us some great ideas on pedestrian-oriented signs as vehicular-oriented signs, and I think we want to encompass that in some of our graphics. So feel free to interface with Matt and I at City Hall here. So when I have somebody that's coming in that's going to be doing the graphics on a computer for us.
So do you think this will be ready for next month?
For next month, yes.
Okay. Sorry to jump you on that one.
And the inclusionary housing, I just did an additional discussions with the square footage of, and it gets down to the concept is that smaller units are really more affordable. We went through the HUD criteria, and an affordable house sells for right around between $185 to $224. And that depends on what your average income for the area is. And it used to be the rule of thumb is that you would spend 30% of your salary on housing. The HUD is jump that up to 40%. And that's 40% of the payment of the principal plus the interest, plus the taxes, plus the PMI, and all related associations in there. So it gives it a little bit more flexibility in terms of determining the price of a home or what it's going to sell for in terms of affordability. You know,
But there's no house in San Juan that sells for under 300,000.
Yeah, right. 3 years ago, you were finding some 260s and 240s, and now all of a sudden it jumped up into the 300s, and now a few of them have closed at the 400 category. So you see our affordability index has changed over the last 3 years, you know, and stuff.
Because the one that in the
Monterey and
4th Street, the little tiny small one there,
Yeah.
that's 255.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's only 690 square feet.
I bought it for 16,000.
Well, that corner lot, the Monterey and Third, just sold for $474.
Yeah, right. And so we've done some things there, and the difference between the market rate at 480 to 475 and affordability comes out a difference of about $140,000, and that's what you have to make up in terms of the affordability and inclusionary things. And if you take 5 times 140 and then divide it by the remaining parcels there, it adds about $35,000 per lot over and above what the impact fees. Our impact fees run about $23,000. School impact fees run about $6,000. And then if you add a $35,000 hit to that, then you're up to a building permit cost of about $63,000.
Cash.
Yeah, before you can pound a nail, you see. So that it gets down to the question is the affordability, and that's why I was comparing it to changing the ordinance to 1 and 8 for more affordable. But yeah, we're still going to get, take for instance the 27 lots. You're going to get 5 affordable units that are at affordable units, and if you go 1 and 8, you'll get 3. But you'll, you know, the 97 lots, you'll get 19 under the 1 and 5, and you'll get 12 in the 1 and 8.
I got a question. What's the apartments across the street down there by Valero? What's the small ones rent for what? $1,200 a month?
Yeah, $1,200 a month. Yeah.
That doesn't include water and gas.
No.
Well, 2 things would happen when you build. You need all these fees because you got to pay for that infrastructure, and it's the cost of doing business. But it also affects the sale or the rent. And someplace along the line, if you don't put up the school money, the kids aren't going to have a quality place. You don't put up library money, you're not going to have. So all these fees, basically the cost of living here, and compared to other places, it's not that much. So I have you know, an internal conflict between what we got to charge to get the stuff built, and what's going to be charged to the people that we're trying to get into these houses of a lower income level. Mm-hmm. But if we start writing off fees to a developer so he brings the price down, we have a problem of not getting the taxpayer, existing taxpayer, is going to end up paying all these things that are needed. And I think the upfront cost is when you build it, you got to pay the going rate. And this is where the federal subsidies, Section 8, and whatever else is available comes in. On top of an established house, they can work the rent on Section 8 or any of the other programs. 1 and 8, 1 and 5, I don't think we're getting anything right now. In lieu fees is just money, and that it's never enough to even build a house. So that's why I'd rather see, as these things are built, make one of those units or a couple of those units that can look the same on the outside, but you make them affordable, and by having the housing authority manage it for you, let them deal with it. So that's just my thoughts on this.
And Commissioner Franco's correct. Is when you do get in lieu fees, we have necessary dollars to, but it's not enough to build a unit and everything. The code or the inclusionary housing ordinance allows us to say we could use those to put infrastructures in and put in sewers so that we make it more affordable to develop lower cost housing. And take, for instance, the D'Ambrosio, where they had to spend an additional $80,000 or $100,000 to widen that one section of the road. Well, that sometimes inclusionary thing is to say, hey, we'll do that for you. It makes so you don't have to there, but you have to lower your houses to make sure that you meet the affordable. And sometimes you have to work that direction by using those incentives to get more affordable housing.
Our permit fee now running around, what, 36,000?
Our impact fee is 23 plus 6. So by the time we get the school impact fees in ours, it's right around $29,000.
It's the same permit fee here in Hollister is 60,000 for a house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like I said, you know, they're not low, but you're right. Other places they're much
Way
higher.
higher, yeah.
So that's something to think about. But bottom line is, I don't think we have a choice on providing affordable housing. Matt?
Yeah, and we just got through doing our housing element and stuff like that. And the HCD always pushes higher densities, and I think you'll see it in our general plan where we want to go with more higher densities, R2s and R3s, to get more rental stock.
So you got these
more
guys.
Affordable.
You got these guys out there they don't care what your city is, just make it all R4 because there's 10,000 units in there and everybody's happy. You could destroy the culture of a city. You could destroy everything that we're trying to make for everybody. You could destroy it in just saying, hey, we're going to put R4 up and down, change all R1s to R4s, and have like mansions that have 4 units in them.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. And yet we do have a commitment to providing affordable housing.
And
so we got to be thinking about this because it's not going to go away. And you know, not just to the developer, the city is going to be held responsible. Or I'd hate to lose out on a grant because we didn't provide something that we had agreed to in the housing element.
And we try to encourage in the initial development is secondary units or rental housing, and so you keep that down. And then duets at corner lots where that meets the thing, and then a few affordable units. So it's a balance of, and you don't stack a bunch of apartments all in one area. You try to disperse it and integrate it throughout the whole development.
Food for thought. Any other comments on this? Anybody would like to speak on this? We'll go to the next item. That was inclusionary housing. Hillside ordinance.
So just to give you an update, Roger and I wanted to keep this in front of you just to kind of keep it fresh in your minds, to keep thinking about it. How is it that we're going to be preserving the rural setting that we have here in San Juan Bautista, and especially the hillsides that surround us, you know, on most of the sides. But that, you know, part of that concern as well is preserving those areas because there's landslides in some areas, and you know, building is not appropriate in others. And so during this general plan update, we've heard several times that we want to preserve that rural feel. And so with this general plan update, we'll be identifying those areas and most likely having an overlay hillside preservation type zoning that basically will identify these areas that we feel are of most concern as far as viewshed preservation, as well as safety from landslide, unstable soils and different things like that. And so we just wanted to keep it in front of you as the general plan is out for review, and these are some of the things that we're going to be making sure that are in place. And further down the road, if we do design and come up with a hillside type ordinance, we'll have the backing of the general plan to say, hey, this is what we've heard, and you know, these are the areas of concern, and this is why we feel this this is valid to go for it. So we just wanted to keep it in front of you so the information stays fresh, and of course if you have any recommendations or any other ideas, things that you've seen in other communities, feel free to let us know. We can research and pull that information in.
Have you been keeping an eye with the county regarding the ISHA project that they wanted to put it on the ridge?
Yep. Yep.
We keep tabs on that, yeah, right. And at your last meeting, Matt did a map that showed you the hillsides and very small portions of it's in the city right now. The vast majority of it's right outside. And I think it's important in our general plan, our sphere of influence, is to identify these areas and then have something on the books that you guys are going to make a recommendation to our city council so that we can control the development of those.
If they start moving without going by you or through you, I think it's imperative on you to call a special meeting of the commission, and we'll take an action to send to the board of supervisors, because there's no point in letting the first one go and us having to react to it. And yet, beautiful ordinance, and here's this big god-awful thing on the top. So we have a reason to say, hey, this shouldn't be there. And so with that research you've done, but like I said, keep an eye on them, because I don't want that one to get through.
Right.
And they can go someplace, but not on the ridge line.
And I think from what the county has in place, I mean, since it's in our sphere of influence, we'll make sure to keep an eye on it, but that...
See, they haven't been connecting with you. That's what I'm getting at. They haven't been connecting with you and Roger. You find out about it after they've been doing a bunch of stuff. So I think it's imperative on you to call periodically and say, hey, where's this project at?
It's getting much better.
Yep.
It's getting better. That's good to hear.
Yep.
But I mean, I just keep thinking of the stuff that went through that they never contacted our departments with. So, but like I say, I would support a special meeting for the commission to act if we have to bring the board of supervisors to understand where we're coming from. Okay.
I have a question. Why does one say greater than 15% and down at the bottom it said 25? Applicability A number 1, located on slopes greater than, and then B down at the bottom. Am I misreading it?
Now, slopes of 15 or more come into is what you're going to look at. But if they're over 25, you won't have any houses on them.
None at all. I see.
No, because they're going to.
Yeah. Okay. 15. And then later, I think in some of the other documents we've been reading, retaining walls was a big issue. And have we mentioned enough in here about retaining walls, engineered retaining walls, and so forth might be necessary?
Yeah, that's something we should.
You know, something else while you're thinking about it. You do engineering stability reports for hillside houses. An engineer goes through this thing and says, yeah, this you can build here. Not far from where I lived in Big Sur on Pfeiffer Ridge, this house was all engineered properly, all the permits were issued, and next thing you know, it's starting to slide and the house is condemned. So we've got to be real careful on whatever is recommended here for us, slope studies or building on hillsides or whatever. But again, the engineering was done, everything was done properly, and yet the house slid. So
I think that's part of the forward thinking of what we're trying to do. As Roger had mentioned, there's not very many properties that are within the city that have these designations, whether it be more than 15%. And so, as there's property in our sphere of influence, or as property comes into the city.
Yeah, that's the ones I'm worried about.
Right. So.
Yeah, we're basically a flatland city, but our growth area is hillsides and valleys and whatnot. Okay, public, anybody want to comment on hillside subdivisions, hillside ordinances rather?
It becomes very apparent when you talk about Washington.
Yeah.
There was another one down in Southern California by north of Santa Barbara, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole hillside came down, covered up a bunch of houses, and the governor promised to help them rebuild. And yet, around turn of the century, early 1900s, somebody was doing a paper for his project Berkeley or something, and it was identifying the number of times that the trains were stopped because of slides in this area. Someplace along, everybody forgot about it, and this thing did happen. So this is California. This is part of what we got to live with. Okay, so much for hillside ordinances. Parking.
So staff had been looking at parking overall, and given parking in the downtown is kind of a bigger beast, one of the bigger things, or one of the pieces of that would be bus parking, and so we thought we'd bring this up to the commission. City had been speaking with the school district, trying to promote and find a way for a lot of the visitors that come in, whether it be the fourth graders or tour buses alike. A lot of that parking is taken up by those larger vehicles and end up taking a lot of parking away from, whether it be visitors that need good accessibility, seniors, disabled. And so what we would like to see as a city is kind of focusing that parking into a certain area. And a few different areas have been identified in the past. But after doing some research and conducting some kind of informal interviews with both bus drivers of school buses and coach drivers, kind of seeing where they prefer to park and where they can get in and out of. One of the best spots that kind of had popped up was the soccer field gravel lot, which is right at the entrance, very easy to pull in and out. So I had kind of followed up, or staff had followed up with the school district since they own that property, and it seemed that the superintendent, Willard McAbee, was really supportive in opening that facility up for those larger vehicle parking during those peak times of when buses come through. And so the city will be working on a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, to work with the school district to promote that parking as a preferred parking lot, and not to ban from any other place, but to basically create a preferred lot for the bus drivers to safely navigate in and out of, and to also just free up a lot of the parking around the mission for visitors. And so in the staff report you can find there's a few attachments, one of them being just kind of some of the initial key thoughts and ideas that were collected from the informal interviews, as well as benefits to having some kind of simple program that we're talking about this evening. Some of the things I had mentioned: clears up parking around the mission, the bus parking, whether the students got let off in that soccer field parking lot or in front of the Mission Plaza. There's bathrooms in that parking lot, and so that's a plus for students coming in and out, as well as other visitors. The bus drivers, they mentioned that parking close to that area, they're able to access and get lunch at places nearby. I think one of the focuses would be keeping the loud diesel buses off of the narrow 3rd Street downtown district is desirable. So kind of after understanding where these bus drivers were coming from, one of the other attachments that we had was a kind of preferred route, which buses, as they are large vehicles, need to make turns and navigate through some of the smaller streets of San Juan Bautista. And so these two, both the parking, preferred parking, and route kind of go together, depending on where the driver's coming from, if they're coming from 101 or if they're coming from, I guess they'd be coming westbound on 156. How do they enter and exit the city? So these are really important things to keep in mind. And so the little map that's provided in the staff report kind of shows you how they can navigate in and around the city, but also get to that parking lot. Identified with the little red line as kind of a drop-off area, so you could see how they can come in on the Alameda, make a right at Washington Street, and then make a left and be right there in front of the Mission. That's kind of a route that I've seen even from a lot of different bus drivers that I haven't talked to, choosing that street. Then making the drop-off, they can go down to McCollum, which is very wide, and make a left, heading down to 4th, and they're kind of off the 3rd Street. And just having this type of information available to these drivers, I think, is key. And so, we've reached out to both the Mission and the state park to let them know that we're going to be coming up with some kind of strategy for this. The state park, from Roger and I's conversations with the superintendent there, he's realizing that there's a big issue with parking, and that bus parking is kind of one of them. And so, they're definitely willing to work with us to promote some kind of system that's beneficial for everybody. And so, kind of in the last diagram, you can see just a really rough sketch of the buses, kind of however they can organize themselves, basically kind of like a diagonal parking could accommodate a good amount of buses in that lot. And so I guess staff is going to be following up on the MOU and then would be identifying and producing a brochure, kind of just listing some of the things that we would agree that would work for kind of all the stakeholders, and it being just a preferred, not a mandatory thing. Naturally people are going to take the easiest route, and I think from my conversations with the bus drivers, seems to be the way that they're going, but we'd like to direct all bus drivers to do this similar pattern and approach.
I think that this would be one of the initial steps to alleviate some of the congestion that takes place here on 2nd Street. There is the next step that Ben and I are working on, and that is to engage the Mission, State Park, the city, and get everybody on the same page to maybe open up some of these vacant lots around here that can be used for parking.
Good work.
I want to commend you
Not to
on,
mention developing these vacant lots.
Condemning.
I want to commend you for the amount of work you've done. You haven't been here that long, and it's I can see you've been very, very busy. I asked to have this one put on the agenda also, among other than what you're doing. I still feel that this problem here is above commission and staff level. And I kind of drafted a letter that we could send to the mayor to recognize that. And let me read it to you, and that kind of tells you where I'm coming from. At its meeting on April 1, 2014, the Planning Commission discussed the issue of parking in the city, specifically the lack/shortage of available parking in and about the commercial areas of the city and its adverse impacts on the city. It was a consensus of the Commission that the problem can only be solved by action at a higher level, namely the City Council. Planning Commission urges the City Council to call a meeting to include representatives of the city, the Catholic Diocese of Monterey, the Aroma San Juan School District, and the California State Parks to seriously discuss possible solutions to the problem. All 4 agencies attract the visitors to San Juan Bautista and should be involved in meeting their needs in a convenient manner. Thank you for your attention to this request. That's where I'm coming from.
Bravo.
I have been saying it isn't a matter of staff talking here, God talks to God. And that means the elected officials. And if the school board sends the superintendent, that's their business. But I think we need to have council members, board members, whoever represents the state at that level, and they got to start thinking about it. Matt's got some suggestions and for parts of it, but the big issue, and it's really a general plan issue, is planning is a significant, serious problem in our city. You want people to come in, there better be a place to put that car. Convenient.
And this is what the issue is. You've got some empty lots that should be used. You've got state has parking, the church has parking, the city has parking, empty lots. Everybody should be sitting there at the same time and no meeting without them. I mean, there has to be all four agencies represented. And it's not a matter of, well, you know, church won't do this. What, you sit there, what does it take to get that lot? What does it take to get that lot? And let the owners start getting in there. I mean, we're inviting, we got 90,000 people coming in to see the mission and the state park. Everybody should be part of that issue. If we say, well, we'll tell them not to come by, that's a significant change. But since you do want them to come in, what is it going to take so we don't have a wall of buses in front of City Hall, both sides, someplace else on downtown? We can keep buses out of downtown and make them go by foot. That's a plus. But we can have a place for those buses. That's a good thought. Maybe they shouldn't have put the parking, maybe they shouldn't have put the field in there, you know, put 100 cars in there. But, you know, I mean, so I don't want to hear from anybody saying, well, they don't do this, so they won't. No. What does it take to make it happen is the only question you have to ask and answer.
Not to mention Caltrans.
You want to put Caltrans on this thing?
You should.
Okay.
We should, because we're talking about speed limits and safety when it comes to, and you know, I mean, I've always thought that the state needs to work with the local communities and be a part of our general plan. You know, and it just doesn't seem like we can't get through these people. That when it, you know, when we need to make decisions about traffic control and the safety of our community. You know, I don't see why we can't go to the state capitol, sit down with somebody over there and say, let's get this done. You know, because we got people, you know, driving crazy through here sometimes as far as our highways go. And it's going right through our community. You know, we should have some legal power that says you can't be doing that. You have to do it a certain way, whether it's roundabouts or whatever. I know it's, but I agree with you, Ernest, that, you know, we got to stop saying, you know, we just can't get anywhere with it. Right, and we got to find out where.
So how can we make this letter happen?
You know,
Somebody makes somebody moves that to send this letter be sent to the mayor. You want mayor and council? Yeah, we'll send mayor and council. And I'll finish this off, and I'll get it on that agenda for the next meeting, if you guys vote on it. But the key thing is we're not blaming anybody, and I'm not knocking Matt, because I think you did a lot of work on that thing, and a lot of that stuff's going to be coming up in these meetings.
yeah. But the thing is, we get everybody to benefit from it.
Right.
I mean, we're not looking to say, hey, we're going to do it this way, and we don't want anybody to help us with our changes. But we're looking for a middle of the road where things will work for everybody and do what's right for the community.
And this is a good way to get the partnership going between all the entities.
Yeah.
We have a public comment. Bob?
I think you're on the right track. I think you may be duplicating efforts, because it's my understanding that the entity where these stakeholders should be sitting at the table is the Strategic Planning Committee. That they are supposed to be representatives of those groups coming up with a plan for the city. And if you're going to create another place for them to interact, I think that may be unnecessary. I think that one of the difficulties with the Strategic Planning Committee has been that it hasn't had any real function so far. And there isn't anything for them, there hasn't been much for them to do. And I think that's one of the reasons that the state park or the mission or, you know, the school has not been present. But I think the vehicle to address what you're talking about may be the Strategic Planning Committee.
Thank you.
And we're in the process of putting that plan together right now with the general plan.
And you're serving on it.
This
Yeah.
is way above everybody. This is elected officials or their designees,
The decision makers.
the decision makers. The committee, the strategic plan committee, general plan committee, planning commission, we're all appointed down here. These are the guys that make the decision and say to their people. I had the same problem with the Monterey Airport District. The airport district is a city unto itself. And their airport manager would not work on our transportation study. He says, I'll do my 500 acres, you guys do the rest. Well, it wasn't like that. He wouldn't come to meetings, so I got a letter sent to the board. He went to that meeting. And we found out how many hundreds of people were working on that airport property coming out onto Highway 68. There was no lights, there's people just working their way through. It takes action at the top and it works its way down. We get directions from the council and that's what we do. That's why we're doing the sign code. They say do it. And so I just see that this is way above. Bob?
Well, it may be that your letter energizes the city council to work at the strategic planning level, strategic plan committee level, because it's the people that are supposed to be on the strategic plan committee are supposed to be the people from the state park or the city or the school who make the decisions. It's not just representative. It's supposed to be, that's supposed to be the entity that the decisions about what needs to be done for the betterment of San Juan are made. And that old historic San Juan plan said that one of the big difficulties in San Juan was that people weren't sitting down and talking to each other, that the entity, the stakeholders, were not able to work together. So that organization was supposed to be the place where that happened, that committee. So my concern is that if you set up a conversation outside of that committee, and it may be that that's what has to happen, but if you do set that up, I think it devalues the strategic planning committee, the strategic plan committee. It's just something to consider.
I don't think that letter would devaluate. I think it would support it. That's where I'm going with it. Well, that's it.
Well, this letter will start the process.
Yeah.
What's going to
Puts out
happen
letters to the city council, then they're going to act on it, and then we have to, then they'll set up a committee and everything.
Well, I don't want a committee.
No.
I want them to meet.
Right.
I want them to meet
The
with
city council
people.
should, in their vision that's supported by a strategic plan, whatever that might be at this point in time, they're the ones that are going to collect the people at the individual level to make things happen at the top.
Well, the city
But they're the ones that got to put their foot forward.
The city council appointed the strategic plan committee, thinking that those were the stakeholders for the city.
So once this letter goes out to the city council, they may determine that they want to send it to the strategic plan.
Yeah, I think your letter. I think stepping on the gas is a good idea. You know, I
This
think
is the start of it.
putting,
Right?
yeah, I think that I have no problem with that. I just wanted to. Just hope there's some.
But I don't want to also minimize what Matt and everybody's been doing as far as getting this set up. And I think, I think collectively we need to bring it to a head and get something started where we're all on the same page and start chipping away at the things we need to do to bring these people together.
Definitely. And the existing strategic plan committee, I think, I'm not saying that you need to just turn it over to them.
Yeah.
Because as it
organized.
exists, they don't have the stakeholders there.
Yeah.
See, that's what happened with the stakeholders when they sent somebody who's, say, a volunteer or down at a less than management level. They're volunteering. But when the guys, like I said, this management guy at the top it wasn't me. It was his boss that says, you will attend that meeting. And all of a sudden, all this stuff we had no idea came through. But if it had been up to him, and he was, like I say, he was their city manager. He was their head guy. And I don't want to go. Well, we took care of that.
So could you read that again? So,
Okay.
please.
At its meeting on April 1, 2014, the Planning Commission discussed the issue of parking in the city, specifically the lack/shortage of available parking in and about the commercial areas of the city and its adverse impacts on the city. It was a consensus of the Planning Commission that this problem can only be resolved by action at a higher level, namely the City Council. The Planning Commission urges the City Council to call a meeting to include representatives of the city, the Catholic Diocese of Monterey, the Aroma San Juan District, Caltrans, and the California State Parks to seriously discuss possible solutions to the problem. All 5 agencies attract visitors to San Juan Bautista and should be involved in meeting their needs in a convenient manner. Thank you for your attention to this request.
I don't think
Sincerely.
it's strong enough. I'd like to see it stronger, because there is no other issue in this town than parking, as far as I'm concerned. Because, I mean, look at this weekend. It's a madhouse. I don't know how, and how many times have we asked these people? They need to be demanded to come. I hear Bob saying the strategic command, supposed, you used the supposed to several times, and they didn't do it yet. They haven't been able to get the top people here, and I'm.
But see, now I want the mayor.
I'm so in favor of this. Only if you want to make it stronger, I'll vote for it.
Well, would you consider including anything like eminent domain? I mean, give some examples.
I just want them to meet. We could put that in. I mean, how far do you
Well,
want to go?
I mean, the stronger language would be when do we schedule this meeting?
That's up to
We
the
want
city
a
council.
response back.
Can we suggest that we meet in the month of May or whatever?
Well, we're not. Planning Commission won't be meeting. It's strictly, like I said, it's strictly elected
No,
officials.
for this particular subject.
You should just say.
Oh, we urge them to meet as soon as possible.
Put it on the agenda. Where do we meet? When do we meet? And what are you going to do about getting this together?
And you say representative. We
Oh,
really
okay.
want top drawer.
I would appreciate we would appreciate if you would make this a priority discussion at your next meeting.
That's so nice.
I would send this letter out first and let the city council decide what they want to do.
Well, we can ask them to put it on the agenda and discuss
What
it.
is this?
Yeah.
Because I don't want it just to be a letter that they got in, okay, well, it's one more. Thanks, Richard. Say, hey, putting it on the agenda makes it a action item.
And you'll be at that meeting.
I think that if you send that letter to the city council, that they will agendize and more moves on stuff like that, definitely.
Man.
I just want to say I think your recommendation is definitely a good one. I don't want to deflate that. I think it's really good. I think one of the things that I've been really working on, and it kind of fits my personality, is kind of reaching out to these different folks. And I mean, like Roger and I, we've met with state parks a few times, whereas I think since he's been here, he hasn't really had that experience, as well, getting in good comm with the or communication with the mission, and of course with the school district. And I think the approach. I mean, I know when you had asked to bring up parking, parking as a total is a major big beast, like I had said, and I think the strategy that I was kind of looking at was picking off a piece that's chewable, that these few stakeholders can get a win, like something that's pretty easy to get together. It just takes organization and buy-in and getting that win from that smaller piece. And then if that win doesn't happen, I think more so the route that having that letter and having that body saying, hey, like, we need to all get together, I think that more so would be great. But that I think with the win and kind of saying, hey, this is how easy was that, and I mean that's something that me personally working on it, I think it can get done. And so I'd rather have that win and then say, okay, hey guys, here's this bigger problem, let's all talk, and kind of working from the staff level instead of big city council saying, hey, do this. It's more like, hey, we all understand that there's an issue here, and we need to all play ball together. And coming from staff, I think that's something that may have been a piece that was missing, but I think that piece is going to be working. So I think if I can make a recommendation to maybe hold off this idea for maybe at a later date and see how just this one piece, if we can get it together and get the ball rolling, and then maybe that other piece won't be necessary. But if not, then I think it is a great recommendation.
Well, thank
to
you
go
for your
with,
thank you for your input.
Yep.
Bottom line is, we've talked about this for a year, and it's been talked about a few years before that. So, sometimes you have to stop planning and start acting.
Oh, and he has with this.
Pardon?
He has started acting.
Oh yeah, no, he has. But like I said, I'm not looking for small victories. I want to get all the generals at the same time to see that this is a serious problem in our city, because our council members are telling them.
I think the letter will expedite your efforts, even more so.
Well then,
If I'm looking at the positive side of things.
we should couple the letter with a reference to...
There you go. No,
I just want a clean letter. This is not staff work. Remember, this is the commission talking to its appointing body, yeah, and saying, hey, we got a problem down here. Now, there's a lot of stuff that can be brought up afterwards, but we've got to let them know this is serious. You got a general plan that's never going to be implemented if you don't have a place to put the cars that you're trying to get people to come in to visit you for. And so, if this does nothing more than to shake them up, that we've done something.
What's your time frame on this? I mean, do you...
Well, there was actually another map that I kind of did a whole downtown district inventory, but it wasn't quite ready.
You can give that to council when they come and talk to you after this happens. But see, we've got to tie you to the council. See, you don't make the decisions; they do. We don't make the decisions; they do. And so I just wanted to know, this body that you guys appointed sees a major problem that we've been talking about for too many years, and no one's saying, well, they won't do this and they won't do that. I don't know who they is, but I know that when we all get them sitting down, this is one of those days, and that's one of those days, and they have to, I'm telling you why it can't be done. Okay. Well, the way I look at it is, what does it take to make it happen? See, planning doesn't happen. It's made to happen.
And it needs a time frame.
We want them to meet
Our whole problem has been that these stakeholders have been sitting down, stakeholders from these entities have been sitting down for years. Then one moves, one gets transferred, someone dies, someone gets reelected. And so the same group doesn't happen long enough to get a policy developed unless we have a time frame. I think what we see in here is the old folks and the young people who are so politically correct, and those of us who are so tired of waiting that we're having this impasse at this moment, and I am urging that we go ahead with this.
This is where it starts, right here, right, that letter. Puts the heat on everybody.
Well, I would like to ask Matt if there's anything in the coming strategic plan that addresses this, if that's a vehicle to address this.
It does.
Yeah, it's in the general plan. It's in the past general plan. It's in this general plan.
See, but it's words on paper. We want action from the words. We got,
But you can use the plan to do that.
Yes, it's where the vision's at. And the thing is, City Council is sitting there saying, we're going to do this.
But they won't do this and they won't do that. We put them all together, then our city council can say, hey guys, you own this, you own that, we could do this.
Did you plan to talk to city council about this?
Yeah, and actually, the packet that was also given to the state park and the mission and
so
the school district.
This,
they got all this information. So they got exactly what you got.
So to me, I would be thinking, okay, now that you've got the word out there, what day have you scheduled for us all to get together on this?
So I think with In regards
with
to
all
this,
all the parties involved.
well, I think that was kind of a future step, which Georgiana pointed out, is a future step and not a now step.
A future step
Yeah.
following
But
your
the-
steps.
I mean, a letter would be saying, okay, now that you've got the information, let's make a date for such and such a date where we're actually going to require everybody to be there to put some action into this plan.
So, just from my perspective, I mean, getting the groups together definitely would be good. As far as a full understanding of the parking, I think it would take kind of an outside consultant of some sort to do a whole parking study would probably be what would happen. Kind of the result that I know would happen is the biggest problem with parking is usually that it's free. You don't, you drive up to the front of the restaurant and you park and you go right in and you don't pay for that prime real estate. And that's the problem, I think. I mean, Roger and I both talked about this quite a bit, and especially today and last week and before that. But, it comes down to it being free. And so once you can kind of identify how are you going to get those funds, and then when you get those funds, how do you direct those on-street parkers to say, oh, I'm not going to pay for that on-street parking, but I will go around the block to this free parking lot that's off-street, around the Mission, wherever, because they're not willing to pay that small fee, but to use their feet to park for free. And that's something that can be implemented, I think, relatively pretty easily by just charging for parking at certain times, peak times, and then you can direct people. But anyways, that's probably what the consultant would say after $100,000, $200,000 worth of research. But
And it still goes down. He's still going to have to go talk to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still going to have to talk to the stakeholders, the
Right,
powers
right.
that be.
See, so I just want to put some fire into the stakeholders.
It's like we have a historical plan, paid $60,000 or whatever for it, and it sits there.
Everybody can tell us.
We got to stop that from happening.
I think we asked you to do this, didn't we, last time? We encouraged you to get a letter ready and...
Yeah, it's overdue. So, as is, or you want to modify it?
Public comment?
As is fine, it's real clear. You don't need anything else, my personal opinion.
Thank you.
I move that we send this letter that you have adopted, Chairman.
I second it.
We have a motion to rescind it. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Did she
I
say
said
yes?
aye.
Did she?
Thank you. For opposed?
No, no,
Oh.
I
Now can we go back to the bus issue? Is that where we're going?
That's over.
No, that's it. That was.
Oh,
See, because the buses and all these little details, they're all details. They're all part of, after we get to talking, then we can do something. But until these guys get together and say, hey, you're right, there is a problem.
But I had a
solvable
question.
problem.
My question is, it doesn't do any good to talk to the bus drivers. You have to talk to the school district and let them say how they're going to navigate, don't you? Is it just a bus driver issue?
There's no
Well,
law.
I guess I had traveled a lot with sports teams, and the bus drivers, they do a lot of research to where they go so they don't get stuck and pinned in different bad situations. I think that's kind of a grassroots approach where you understand, hey, what are these? I mean, like people talk about this open lot here by the Mission. Coach buses can't get in there. They can't make the turn. They can't. I mean, they bottom out. I mean, school buses can. And that's knowledge from asking the bus driver. And so, I mean, I think the grassroots approach of understanding, hey, why do they prefer to come in at the Alameda instead of making the left turn onto McCollum and Monterey? Is because they got a bus full of students or tourists, and they don't want to make that left turn with traffic. And so, understanding just makes it easier to implement whatever you bring forward.
There are two types of transporters. And there's the coaches and then there's the school buses.
Okay.
They're different, but we have to get to those drivers where the best routes are and where the best convenient.
Okay.
See,
They appreciate it.
UPS did a lot of research on this, and basically they try to get their guys only to make right turns, never go out and cross traffic. And they did a very scientific study. It's called the UPS way, I guess. And I think that's what you're probably referring to. Control, you know, to come in there so that you don't have to, because let's say every time you go in front of cars, you're risking it. There's always a chance. And at least by going to the right, you know, you got more time, more visibility. And somebody did a lot
To
of
further
homework.
answer your question, Georgiana, I mean, instead of having something that I think works and then working with the school district and working with the mission and state parks and then give it to a bus driver and they look at it and they go, I can't make this turn like Commissioner Franco. And so understanding that before you go through that whole process and then you give it to, you know, the output is given it to the driver either before they make the trip or, I mean, a lot of these drivers, they come down from the Bay Area and they come several times a week. And so understanding what their experience is only just helps you come up with better ideas in the end and strategies.
Better solutions.
What I was in the back of my mind was that when we talked to the school districts, then they would tell those teachers to keep the kids from walking all over San Juan streets without any crosswalks, and I'm practically running over kids all the time down here when they're they're not using the crosswalks. I had somebody walk between two buses out right in front of me and did not look either way in the middle of the block.
And
Put on the brakes. Don't kill the kid. And it wasn't a kid, it was a teacher.
Yeah, and I think those are things that I've noticed just sitting out looking out from my desk is they have these big buses and students are cutting through.
Yeah.
If you can have an identified drop-off right in front of the mission, they get right out and then the bus can park somewhere else away. You know, I think these are things that can be resolved.
They do that. It's just, I guess this is another issue to put on another agenda is how we use the street when students are here.
That's what that letter's all about.
Well, they
I
can sit
hope
down
so.
and work on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Real good. Next item we have is Community Development Block Grant Application Update.
So to give an update, we had a design meeting which was basically understanding what are the needs of the community and what would they like to go for funding for. You know, some of the things that we heard were about possible drilling new wells, pellet plant, streets, fixing street conditions, you know, kind of on 3rd and Jefferson, all of 3rd Street. Let's see, sidewalks, curbs, and gutters throughout the city. Let's see, other public services like animal control, fixing up community facilities like community center and other parks. Let's see, what else? So kind of going to have that meeting, part of it was helping the people that attended understand what Community Development Block Grant is, but then also understanding you know, what kind of projects can we go for, but more importantly, what kind of projects will we be able to get the funding for by having a good application. So one of the things that was identified along the way from the HCD, which is the Housing and Community Development, through the grant was that potable water projects are really high on their list, especially you know, right now in the current situation, California being in a drought, and that also drought-related water projects are really high. And so looking at the list that was identified from that design meeting, we have some ideas of what we're going to go for, and that coming up on April 7th, next week, on Monday, we'll have the submittal meeting, which will basically identify the projects that we're going for. One of the things that was identified to me from talking to different folks that have worked with and worked on community development block grants is that when you do it, you want to make sure you do it right. And part of the application, is making the application, and then once you get awarded the funds, you want to make sure that you administer the grant effectively, because each year these funds, they come out, and if it shows that you as a community went for funding, you got awarded it, and then you went through the process and did it right, you rank a lot higher on their list to give funding to, because you actually implement projects and things like that. And so one of the things I see us doing is kind of doing less, which will be more, and then we can kind of go for funding later. And so that's something, especially with staff size, just seems a lot more feasible. So anyways, coming up on April 7th, again, we'll have that submittal meeting, which will be here at 6 p.m., and everyone's invited to come. And then we'll be submitting the application on April 11th. And I think things look pretty good. I know Roger and Trish both been working really hard on getting the pieces we need together to basically make the case why we should get funding, and so I think we're looking pretty good, but we've still got a lot to go. So
good luck.
Have you pretty much decided to go for the pellet softener plant and the park facilities improvement? And
yeah, I think that's kind of what the submittal meeting's for. I mean, I think looking at a project that is going to benefit not just specific people on one street or whatever, but a water project is going to benefit everybody, and as well it being high on their list. I mean, and from the meeting that we had, it was one of the first things that came up, and
we have low, moderate income people
in the city. And I made a big star next to it because that's what people felt was a big need.
Project,
and yeah, exactly. So, so anyways, most likely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody from the public want to comment on that? Ma'am.
I just want to comment formally about the paving of the streets. And Matt, I don't know if I just found out what this means for this acquisition. So to me, it just seems, Third, for example, it's even difficult to drive on it. And the whole time, 9 years I've been here, I can't believe how bad the streets are.
You may want to attend one of those meetings and let yourself be heard on that.
So, it was brought up that the conditions of the streets, especially Third, is really poor, and so, part of looking at that, there's a lot of different requirements needed to be able to get funding, and so, let's say you have one block of street that's really, really bad. Basically, just one requirement off the top of my head is that the people in that area need to be low, moderate income, a certain level, and so with doing a project in a specific area, it's going to be benefiting those people right there, and then of course some of the people that drive through. But you basically have to identify in a smaller area if they meet that threshold, and among other requirements. But in San Juan Bautista, the whole city meets the low to moderate income, but that project would be kind of more specific to one area, and so it takes a little bit more effort to get all the information needed. But it was definitely high on the priority, and really, if we go through this process and it works out and does good with the projects we do go for, that's something that's high on the list as well.
Yeah, action cannot be taken here. You have to go to that other meeting. Thank you. General plan update report.
So we had the fourth community meeting, which was a meeting to go over the draft general plan. There was a presentation given by the Cal Poly students, and they went through the information that was collected from the previous meeting on the preferred scenarios, and basically they collected all those, basically all the highly identified scenarios and the positive feedback, and they kind of put it all into one to make a overall preferred scenario, and that that presentation was given at the draft general plan meeting. We had pretty good turnout. Since then, we've had the draft. It's out for review, so there's a copy at the library, copy here at the front desk. We've sent out link to a lot of those people that have been on email distribution, so we sent out to the commission, city council, general plan, advisory committee, strategic plan committee, as well as a lot of other residents that are interested in the process. If there's anyone here tonight that would like to receive a copy, if you haven't already, you can talk to me after the meeting and I'll get your email address to send it to you. We're going to be getting it put onto the general plan website, but that, like Bob mentioned earlier, this Cal Poly students are on spring break, so you can imagine how that might be difficult from wherever they could be. Anyways, so we'll have it up on the project's website sooner rather than later, and hopefully this week. But yeah, the draft's out there. We're going to be soliciting for comment and review. It's been sent out to all the local agencies and jurisdictions and all the people that are kind of in our region, our area, Caltrans, COG, or San Benito COG, City of Hollister, San Benito County, AMBAG, and so forth. So yeah, things are looking pretty good, and we'll be, I guess, looking for your comments as well at next month's meeting. So have a good read. I know it's a little bit hefty of a document, but there's a lot of images and maps and figures. So
wide space.
Yeah,
a lot of pictures.
Yeah,
wide margins.
Yeah.
Are we already starting to have public comment by way of letters and so forth?
Yeah, that's wide open. From the emails I've sent out, I've basically said just that, send your comments in and everything. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody from the public want to talk about the general plan update? No? Okay. Next item is a report on Caltrans fundamentals of traffic engineering seminar attended by Assistant Planner Leo.
So I had attended a technical advisory committee at Caltrans. They have a seat there and they participate. They had basically invited me and sponsored me to go. I don't know if they needed to select someone from San Benito County, but anyways, it was a week long. It was in Oakland and hosted by Caltrans again. Basically, they kind of broke up the week, and we were able to go and experience a lot of case studies just from being in Oakland. Being able to go and take a walk and check out pedestrians facilities. One of the more interesting things when they have a pedestrian crossing where they have basically all, I guess it would be 6 crossings, so you can cross through the middle and cross on all 4 sides, so car traffic all sits still, and then you have pedestrians all go at once. It's called a scramble. So that was kind of neat to see that as well. We took the BART, which is the Bay Area Rapid Transit, to a, I guess it was referred to as the most accessible building in the world, or at least the U.S. Basically, the building, I forget the name, something Roberts Center. It was for, it was a disabled facility, so they had kind of incorporated all disabilities. And so it was just kind of neat to see the different textures of the floor to cue certain folks, and then the sound of running water to let you know there's a bathroom in that direction, and so forth. But also that being connected to the rail line. and then with elevators and everything like that. But overall, the seminar was good. They went over kind of a lot of information, but there was a capacity analysis and traffic impacts, Main Street, intersection control, and on-street parking, ped and bike facilities, traffic safety analysis and practice, traffic operations, toolbox, special topics. Overall, it was good to see which direction Caltrans is going. As most of you probably know, they're not, well, I mean, they're going to be widening 156, but in most urban areas, they're not expanding roads because they just can't. They're constrained. There's constraints that are keeping them from expanding as traffic increases, and so they're trying to promote alternative modes of transportation. So, you know, if the freeway's closed up, can you take rail? Can you maybe take a bus with your bike and then get somewhere and then bike the rest of the distance? And so they're really trying to promote the complete streets, which is basically making it easier for people that are walking, biking, taking the bus, or even driving to get around. So they're trying to utilize the current infrastructure that they have. So that's kind of neat to see that. You know, one of the things that was included in the packet was a letter sent to the mayor, which looks like we had the same idea of getting people to act. And one of those things being the concerns of, you know, the highway that does come through the community. And I know it's both the lifeblood and connection regionally and the way that I get to work, but then, you know, it also is one of the larger, you know, noise contributors, you know, as well as concerns for safety as far as people crossing and getting around that facility, especially at the Alameda intersection.
Well, you're on that one, and before you go farther.
Okay.
I was heading east on 156 the other day, and I was in my left-hand turn lane, and the light was red, and this great big semi-truck and trailer, he was not able to stop. Man, those brakes smelled bad, but he went through the intersection at high speed and finally managed to stop across he pulled off the side of the road there. So anything we can do for traffic calming coming down that grade. I mean, I don't know why this guy's brakes didn't hold, but if anybody had been in front of him, they'd have gone through the intersection first.
So that situation you just talked about is exactly why Roger thought it would be a good idea for me to go. Having the understanding of why situations like that occur when, you know, through the city it's supposed to be 55, and maybe they're going faster, maybe they don't realize that you're coming down a hill. You know, the sight distance coming around that curve, maybe you don't see the light even though there's some warning signals. And so there's a lot of things that go into engineering a road, and understanding those only is going to help, you know, us in the city make sure that that section of road, and you know, I don't hear of many accidents. I don't actually know the data on that intersection, but with the roadway widening from the Alameda to just past Union Road, you know, they're basically planning to do 65 all the way through to 101. So, you know, a 55 zone through the city is going to be increased 10 miles an hour. And what does that mean? Well, you know, part of the thing that I understand is that, you know, if there's already these concerns that are coming up, there's plenty of skid marks to let you know that, you know, someone's getting into a bad situation, and, you know, it's not going to take very much for a big collision to occur and you know, some major issues with that. But you know, just understanding that that's kind of where it's going, and, you know, how can we either lessen the speed through city limits, or, you know, retain that speed, but also have maybe new traffic calming devices or better notification for people, or radar speed signs to let you know, hey, you are going past the speed limit. And then, of course, the enforcement part of it, increasing that enforcement so people can say, oh, hey, if you go more than 55 through San Juan Bautista, you're going to get a ticket. And so, a lot of those things all combined together are only going to help. But with this letter, this is, again, just kind of that starting point to make that documentation, because that was one of the big things that they were pushing at Caltrans was, hey, anytime we make any decision, we have to document why we made that decision. And so from the city's standpoint, if we can document and say, hey, there's already these concerns, one of the situations you just mentioned, they're happening and it's for a reason, and there's some kind of design issue, or there needs to be traffic calming or enforcement, if we can kind of get that written down and build support and kind of say, hey, this is a section that's important to us, and we need to make sure it continues to be a safe place. And of course, yeah, with 65 all the way through, with more speed equals more noise, and so that's also another big concern. And yeah, so we just wanted to get you that letter to say this is going to be going to the City Council. Of course, if you have any recommendations, things to add in there, let us know.
They got some good stuff in there.
We strongly feel is that the only way that we're going to convince Caltrans to lower the speed is that we have to get everybody involved, that the council, board of supervisors, planning commission, the citizens, and even our elected representatives, Senator Canelo and Assemblyman DeLeo, start putting the pressure on them to classify 156 coming through San Juan as a safe route,
safety corridor.
Safety corridor, and to lower the speed.
But I think there's something else. Well, a safety corridor is generally, if there's a lot of accidents and usually deaths, then they usually label a certain section a safety corridor, and they do a lot of different mitigations and things like that.
Wait till somebody's
Right,
killed
yeah.
to designate a safe highway.
At one point, it used to be the highest allowable death rate before action was taken, and that's the word. I question it. Highest allowable death rate.
Mm-hmm.
So, at San Miguel, we killed 13 people one day on San Miguel on 101, and next thing you know, we started getting that overchange.
Yeah, and we don't want it to come to that. So, yep.
So, okay. Any questions on that one from the public?
I have a question. If nobody else does. No. I was just going to I know it sounds a little, but why are they widening the road? Just for the congestion part?
So, I do have background in transportation planning.
Yeah.
I worked in Santa Cruz for the Transportation Commission, so they manage all the highways, freeways in Santa Cruz County. One of the bigger things that Caltrans is trying to do, and what they're trying to do, as you probably have noticed on 101 going from here to Salinas, where they're building a lot of new bridges and grade separation, is trying to have better access management. So that meaning you have less ins and outs on whatever kind of classification road you have. So like a freeway, so now they're going to be turning 101 from basically here to Salinas freeway, which means you can only get it on and off with an on and off ramp.
Right.
Whereas, controlled access. Whereas here, the highway, there's you can get in from the fields. There's multiple access points, and with a lot of that and slow-moving farm traffic, it creates a lot of issues, and congestion is one of them. But I think just safety-wise, I think they're trying to get rid of a lot of that. So that's why they're.
So we need to piggyback the speed limit.
No, but the mission of Caltrans is to move people and to get people to flow freely. That's their objective.
To the cemetery.
City's just getting away.
To the cemetery, yeah.
City's getting away.
Yeah, city's just getting away. My thing is that they're building over 1,000 homes at
Del Webb.
No, at the golf course.
Yeah.
San Juan Oaks.
Yeah.
And to me, that's driving that.
I think
it is, because you're still going to have the congestion.
I think, with most agencies, I mean, we have a general plan. Caltrans, they have their documents. I think it's, it's all tied into future projections. So, I mean, there's a good amount of traffic that's going to Hollister, and then, of course, the cut-through traffic that heads towards, Los Banos and to Highway 5, given a lot of truck traffic as well. But, they have these different models and projections saying that, hey, there's going to be a larger need, and, of course, as, this area grows and the whole Central Coast, how are we going to have those future connections, because those trucks, whether we like it or not, they're carrying the goods that we buy and that we sell. A lot of the agriculture, I see them all the time. They're pulling in and out with the big rigs and things, and it's slowing, 156. So,
Matt and I, we were on record for the San Juan Oaks Del Webb asking for a grade separation of Union Road. We wanted to go on record. County hasn't done it. No one is. We went on record and said it should be considered. I think it should.
Could you say...
Caltrans dismissed it.
A grade separation
is an overpass.
Oh.
Grade separation means there's no conflict on an intersection.
Huh.
When you spoke about them starting to widen, you said the Alameda. Is that right, or is it down at the other end by Mission Vineyard?
Basically...
From the Alameda.
From the Alameda on, they will start widening
To Union Road.
into...
The widening...
All the way past Union Road.
The widening,
Yeah,
the two
I
lanes
understand.
that...
I thought it was starting a little farther down. I didn't realize it could be at our stoplight.
No, the project...
Is probably 500 feet beyond...
Beyond the bridge or before
where the two
bridge?
lanes merge, they would not merge. They would just continue through. And then whereas you come into San Juan Bautista, where you merge out to two lanes, or you expand, that's...
About the end of Nyland Road is where it goes.
The other end where the creek, yeah.
Okay. This has been a very interesting meeting, a very interesting night. Future agenda items.
I'd like to see the historic overlay revisited. I don't think we finished with that. We would then have design review for the whole town and certain spots, because people do ask how come they could build a house next to on for blah, blah, blah. And I say we don't have a public appearance because we don't have a historic overlay.
Yeah, I think that's a good...
Is that what I...
Why, you're talking about residential, maybe?
Well, I thought we were talking about a historical overlay district that would pick up places that are not in the historic district when they needed to be reviewed. Wasn't that on the agenda last year?
Yeah, it was expanded, the existing...
And we didn't carry it out.
Haven't carried it out. We'll get that map and we can have you input.
Okay, anything else?
I got one question. What's happening on the burnout? Are they going to clean it up, or?
So
He's still negotiating with this thing, but his insurance company, and then he called me and he wanted to know could he put living units above the commercial down below, and I said, well, that's permissible, it's in a mixed use, don't you? And then he's going to have to meet.
It seemed like the city would make him clean that up right away.
Yeah, I think what they've been waiting for is, like Roger said, a lot of the insurance as far as who's getting what. But I know they had mentioned to us that they're going to be doing a demo pretty soon, demo permit, because I think they cleared out a lot of the equipment in the Chinese restaurant, and so I think they'll be coming forward to us for a demo.
Are they going to tear the whole complex down, or just up to
they had kind of identified to us that they were going to basically start, at the Monterey style building, and then down towards. So I guess I don't know where the cutoff is exactly, what business that is, but the part of the business that has that kind of tan, just flat, straight wall, not the tin roof. They would keep the tin roof and then go down. towards the
Speaking
end.
of parapet roofs. Okay. Any other future agenda items?
Chairman, can I ask that just before the next meeting, can you ask us if there's anything to put on the agenda? Our previous Historic Resources Board president used to do that, and it was helpful.
Oh, okay. Just an email, say, hey.
Yeah.
Okay, because I do meet with staff a few days before before the agenda goes out, and I'll send out a letter that I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, since we got nothing else there, commissioners, any reports you want to make?
Cheers. What's that?
Any reports you want to make? Comments of commissioners?
I just have I have a question. What official capacity does the planning commissioner have outside this meeting? Do I need to? I'm just thinking. Do I need some kind of identification? Somebody approaches me and says, you know, if I'm walking around some project or something like that.
Business card.
You know, is it just a business card? Is it an official letter saying that I am a planning commissioner? I mean, I've never been, you know, I walk around and I feel comfortable, and everybody, as far as I know, has been courteous to me. But, you know, I mean, sometimes I feel kind of, well, you know, not that I'm nosy or something, but I like to know what's going on, you know, and see how projects are going and stuff like that. And to let them know that, you know, I'm there to support you in any way that I can.
We've done a business card for planning commissioners before.
I've just gone in and...
Name cards that have been put together, and I can include that.
Oh, I know. I mean, I feel comfortable doing that. I mean, since this is my first volunteer, as in a government capacity, and I mean, what do? I mean, outside our meetings, without people thinking, you know, maybe he's just being too nosy or whatever.
It's nice to leave your business card so they can call you back. It identifies you, and they can call you back or call City Hall or something.
But we do, I mean, it is okay. It's...
I've done it, just going down there and say...
Go with your little binder and everything. Instead of a clipboard, you know, carrying a clipboard or something like that, it's...
Carry your computer.
I don't want to do that. I just want to be there as a concerned citizen.
Carry your computer. You're online. Your number's in there.
It just dawned on me the other day because I was walking around looking at the brewery, and, you know, the people might come up to me and say, hey, what are you doing here? You know, I was, well...
Tell them it's none of their business.
I want them to think that I'm welcomed. You know. Yeah. No. I said hello. I mean, the owners there, the builders were there, and I said hello to all the folks there, and they were very cordial. And I tell them I was looking around and what have you. But and I poke around when there's nobody there too.
But you know, taking one step farther, David, going and visit some of these business people, identifying yourself as a planning commissioner, and like I would say, you know, you came to San Juan with a dream. We were looking for someone with your dream. Is it coming through? And that's a way to start, because people came in with a dream, invested a lot of money. Did the city meet their needs? You know, did we have the climate? Did we have whatever they needed to be successful? And that's another way of breaking ice and talking with them.
Just thought about it.
Again, it's
We were
PC outreach or something.
Are you a stakeholder?
We were encouraged to by one of the speakers at the last special meeting of the City Council to get out and talk to people, know what's going on.
Yeah, okay.
Does the city provide business cards?
Yeah.
Okay.
But not 500.
It comes a certain...
Well, wait a minute. Does that mean Does that mean we have to be reappointed until they're all used up?
Yeah. That,
give me
in some
about 10
cases
of them.
that would be great. Especially
That many? Okay. I got two things to say, only because they involve the city. The first one is that VFW and the Ladies Auxiliary and the Native Daughters are going to
celebrate Peak Day / Loyalty Day at Fremont Peak State Park on Sunday, April 27th at 11 o'clock. They're going to have a flag-raising ceremony at noon, followed by a few patriotic speeches, maybe not too long, and then games for the children, free barbecues, hot dogs, hamburgers, and beverages.
I didn't catch.
So that's the city event.
What was the date again?
The 27th. That's a Sunday.
I've never went to one of those.
Oh, yeah.
Last Sunday, always of April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be the 28th.
And what day is that?
No, I think
No.
the 26th is this Saturday. Yeah, that's right.
What does it say?
Oh, it's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday,
Yeah,
the
the
27th.
27th is Sunday.
That's at Fremont Peak?
Yeah. And the next one is on the 19th and 20th. The Cactus and Succulent, Monterey Bay Area Cactus and Succulent Society is going to have their semi-annual show, and it's going to be at the community center. And that will be from probably about 9 o'clock to 5 or 4 or 5 on both days. If you are interested in the topics at all, just when you think you've seen all the cacti and succulents of the world, they're having a show, and a juried show, so they'll be judging exotic plants that people will bring in just for this kind of point system. So if that's what your thing, again, that's another event. It's a city event. It draws people. It used to be over at Jardines, but now it's going to be with the city. And they got a parking
It's too bad
problem.
for the downtown. It's too bad for the downtown.
Yeah. But parking is going to be a problem there, too. So I'm trying to figure out what we can do there. I would like to see some shared parking.
Yep.
But the problem is it's Easter Sunday. So, but anyway, that's kind of two events that are coming in. Again, we're looking for things that bring people into San Juan Bautista, make them want to come over here. And so these two events, the veterans, that's a good project. Okay. Anybody else want to say? City manager and city planner.
Yeah, I got.
You got something.
Roger had mentioned the Rotary, San Juan Bautista Rotary Club. On the 26th, they're going to be working and cleaning up the plaza, Orchard Plaza, Orchard lot. And
wow.
Roger will be barbecuing to feed the masses.
His
but
famous barbecue.
yeah, they're basically going to be doing some upgrading and making it ADA accessible, putting in some decomposed granite
Should just make it accessible.
paths.
Period.
But so the goal was to make it accessible, so then as different events come up, they could basically open it, or you can rent it in some way or
It's
fashion.
one behind the hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So that was something that's coming up. Also, I attended the blood drive that Commissioner Franco was hosting up here at Casa Maria, and
Thank you.
hopefully you got a little bit busy after that. But thank you for volunteering. And
Unfortunately, we had 11 people drop in. We got 7 pints of blood out of the 11. There were 5 deferrals. No, 4 deferrals, and 5 of the 7 were first-time donors. So I need some repeat donors.
I think too many of us go to the Red Cross in Hollister.
It's just trying to make it convenient to home, close to home.
But our
But you're
schedules
right.
are
Yeah,
off.
that's my daughter was the same way. She would have come down, but it was just off, and now she's 5 gallons. So,
Good thing.
okay. Any other comments, announcements?
I want to thank our staff for working so hard on so many different projects. You guys are amazing.
Can't promise you a raise, but just a lot more work.
So
have our-
proactive, but, you know, we're doing what we set out to do, is be proactive and not just waiting for things to fall on us.
Wait a minute. What time is this cleanup?
it would be 8 a.m. to I think it's early afternoon.
Okay.
Of course, all help is welcome.
No, I was thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be out there helping.
Like a good Rotarian.
Need a supervisor?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn our meeting for the date of April 1st?
April Fools.
April 1st.
It's 9:48 now, folks. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.